From the beginning, actually.
So I'm very sorry.
All right. The hour now being 7:12. I'll call this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We can move straight to our first and only agenda item, which is the ongoing discussion of the application for a comprehensive permit at 0 Randall Road, Stow Acres North Golf Course. Before we dive in, I guess, let me just look at the applicant and ask, is there anything that new you need to tell us?
No,
Okay.
nothing, no, nothing new.
Okay.
Everything is proceeding along. I started drilling the wells today, so I'm moving forward. Yeah.
Putting 2 in? You're putting all 3 in?
Yeah, well, they're working on the first one.
Mhm.
Get the equipment there.
Hopefully it's just 3. If it's,
Yeah.
there's space for more if we need, but yeah, so they started today.
How deep do you have to go?
We're not there yet. They put it into bedrock, did the casing, they'll start the drilling through bedrock tomorrow morning. So we're hoping 5 to 7, but who knows? Could be 1,200, you know?
Yeah, so I am open to doing this however people like. So obviously we have a draft decision. There was a draft decision that was circulated to members of the board. To the extent that people wanted to, they were encouraged to provide edits to Michael. The version that you all have in front of you now is a redlined, updated version. Mark, do you have this?
Yes.
Okay. And so we have those edits. There are also, I circulated a couple comments involving the trusts of things that we might want as a minimum to put in there. There's we have another memo from our consultant, or a memo describing a conversation with our consultant that might result in some of these items no longer being applicable, so we can talk about that. I'm sort of inclined to just put a pin in those for the
Did
moment.
we get a copy of that?
Of what?
Consultant?
Just handed it out tonight.
It's a memo from me, but it
It's
describes.
Michael's memo, but it describes his conversation. You need a copy of it.
Basically, we can't deal with homeowners' fees in terms of a market and.
Yeah.
Related like we were discussing last time.
I think that's it. Yeah. So I'm inclined to just put that issue to the side for the moment. We can deal with it, I think, at the end. And then, as part of that, sort of at the end, there's also sort of a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 issues / documents that are not ready for approval now. That Ernie sort of rightfully said we should sort of discuss with you and figure out sort of maybe what minimum standards we want to put in there beforehand. So
And then there's this note from Kathy.
yes, and then there's the correspondence from the Conservation Commission. Have those been incorporated into here yet or not?
Yes, all comments I've received have been incorporated into
Okay.
this draft.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'm open to suggestions on how to go through this. I'm sort of inclined, as potentially tedious as it might be, is to simply just sort of go through page by page and just as a result, make sure we kind of catch everything. But if others have other thoughts.
I do have one comment about his public ways. You didn't include all the lanes and everything.
No, the way.
Why not include them now, and then it'd be your option in a later date, which ones you actually want to pass off to the town?
That's fine. I mean, the general, as we were talking about it, what, you know, the thought was the, you know, the major ways
Yeah.
where the other ones were, as you said, just kind of private lane servicing.
Yeah, but that means you're still gonna have to
Servicing
contract somebody to,
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love the town to cover everything.
why not just assume, do it that way? And then if the town, when you come in with a plan, if someone wants to sit down, discuss it, they can discuss it. Well, we don't want to do the lanes because they're one dead end and no place to put the snow.
You had me at town acceptance.
I mean, ultimately, you're requesting them to be public ways. The town can simply say no.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're at the standards and they're public ways, and that,
Yeah.
I think it meets it, and I think that was, you know, one of the comments. And
Let's
I
cut
think
down your costs, that's all.
made some modifications that one of the comments I had page by page is, it should be an affirmative statement. They should understand that the intent was from the zoning board that these be public ways, subject to the town going through the process that they do, as compared to, oh, if the town doesn't accept them, which I think the way it was written. So, so that would be my request, that it be clear what the intent was. And if the intent is for them all to be included, wonderful. But it will make a difference later when people are asking about it, because
That's right.
in 6 years, they're gonna say, well, was it intended that this be a private way, or was it intended that this be a public way? And people look at it and say, no, the intention was always that this would be a public way, which is memorialized in the document, I think is important.
That's what I prefer it to be, because like I say, they're already paying taxes in town and they don't make an abatement just because they don't get their snow plowed. It may not be a significant number, but it may be.
Sure.
And it would cut down on the homeowners association costs.
Yeah.
And make it more equitable to everybody.
Yep.
Then in the affordable houses, will only be paying for the swimming pool and cutting the grass in the common areas and everything, rather than snow plowing. It's gotta be expensive.
No, I'm certainly not gonna say no to that. I agree.
Because actually, in reality, even when it's a private way, the highway department will take care of major repairs. They won't do the plowing and all the other things.
Well,
They'll take care of major, so if they're gonna do that anyway, they might as well.
Yeah, they don't have to.
Yeah,
they have a budget of
Yeah.
$15,000 a year, although I'm sure they don't.
They do it if there's like a major pothole, they do it anyway. And the other stuff, like snow plowing is, I don't think it's a big expense or problem for the town anyway.
For the other developments in town, just, I literally actually don't know. Are they all public? Are they private? Is it a mix?
Arbor Glen, the age restricted housing is private,
Okay,
because it was, at the time, I was on both of the hearings and on the planning board. Why it was left that way, I don't know, because
I think part of the difference too is that there's a different perception with a condominium versus a subdivision. And this is really a difference. I think one of the advantages that, Michael and I were talking about, this is a public way, a school bus will come in here and take kids, because I saw reference to a bus stop, which nobody ever uses. These days, no one is gonna put a second grader, they're gonna let them walk out of the house and walk up to the end of the street. They're gonna walk with them on a nice day, or they're gonna drive and they're gonna sit in the car, they're gonna wait for the bus to come.
Right.
So it's a public way, we've got this really nice looping roadway and that is perfect for a bus, and there are several locations that are ideally suited to get people that will, be a better surface and be safer and be in compliance with town standards. So I would love that they all be public ways at minimum. The main access ways, I think, as public ways would be terrific, but everything would be great. But
like including the one in front of the clubhouse, because the fire department's gonna depend on that possibly to get through. So
and
that
they
has to
can
be
do,
allowed.
and they can make sure that it's open for them as well. Correct.
Does everybody agree with me on that?
No, I think that's a practical way to do it.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I was more, when I saw the list, I was sort of perplexed. I was like, why some but not all,
That was just some of the conversations we had.
No, I understand.
making sure it was the
And those are your
main
priorities.
Loop roadways and
Right.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, priorities is a better way to put it. Those,
Does he need to send a letter in saying it's all of them?
I would prefer it to be in writing, so
okay.
just so we have a complete record.
Okay.
Because
So I will modify the letter to include all ways within the subdivision. And I would request that statement, that section be stated in the affirmative, that it is the intent that these roadways be accepted as public ways.
Okay,
with
it's sufficient to
town
accept his word for it, anticipating the letter coming in after we close the hearing.
yeah, we can make it work.
Okay.
That's fine. We'll make it work.
Yeah, I think we can, if you know it's coming in. I
Yeah, we
think
know
we
it's-
can recognize
That's why I'm bringing it up. So.
Yeah. it. No, I appreciate that.
Okay, any other issues, like, or do we just kind of plot through it? Like I said, it might be more tedious, but I think it's just the easiest way to make sure you don't miss anything.
Could we maybe do it like with everything that's in color, which is probably a lot of it anyway, but leaving out whatever is not.
Okay.
I would like to resolve how we're gonna handle each one here.
Well, right,
Because that affects what the wording is throughout the document.
Which one you're referring to?
You're talking about the additional,
The, these items
Well,
here.
Oh,
I guess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I just see what email that was again, because I didn't provide another copy to anyone.
I got a copy from it, that's all.
Yeah, what is that? Cause I'm not sure if I know what you're
It's-
talking about either.
It's an email from Amy Questle dated August 20th, 2024. So that was 2 meetings ago,
Yeah,
but I can,
It was basically,
it was about post-decision approvals.
Right, we talked about that. I don't remember seeing it.
right, so it's just a list of the topics or documents that, that based on the decision, the draft decision at the time, appeared to be
Condition.
exactly, that's right.
And we don't feel comfortable with them coming back to us, because we can't have a public hearing for them, for any of the decisions. So we prefer that be handled by the planning department, or the building commissioner, or the highway department, or something like that, if it's something they should have a say in. So when you produce the document, some of them have been provided, so there's no problem, but the others,
You don't think you can do that as they come up in here?
it's easier to get rid of them in one place.
Okay.
And then it's easy to go, once they're going through and say, oh, we've taken care of that. And that's my opinion, but, because if you're not, we're gonna be going step by step through the whole document.
Yeah.
And that's a long document that's a decision we can make later.
Well,
The
what-
decision doesn't have to be in a
Can I
public
ask you a
hearing.
question for like the homeowners trust and the umbrella trust? You
Yeah.
made some comments too.
Okay.
If you accept them as they are and then I come back with changes later, are you okay with that?
If, with the planning department
You know,
reviewing,
if I come back with you, if you accept them, this is
No,
what you
we can't.
recognize.
I don't think we wanna do that. When we,
Because
There's-
I don't think they're functional documents at this point.
okay, I
because
agree with you.
They don't include things.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
you know, it's a chicken and an egg. I do think that it is, you know, this board's jurisdiction.
Okay.
I think where it can get confusing, my concern, where it gets confusing, is that we're dealing with this under a comprehensive permit framework. And it goes to a different department and they look at it under a different lens, which can be, you know, I'm gonna say more complicated for lack of a better word, than it needs to be. You know, to deal with it, for the umbrella trust is, you know, some of the comments from the email today, they're saying, look, most of the stuff is not your jurisdiction anyways. So, you know, for me, it's a courtesy to say, hey, I'm happy to provide you with the umbrella trust to make sure that you're comfortable that things are protected. But you're not a signature on it. You don't have to. It doesn't need to be conditioned in there. So taking that and sending it to somebody else that doesn't have the background of this, I don't know what that does.
But
Well, that's my
like,
concern, yeah.
for instance, the deeds, the planning department is more than capable of understanding what's required by our rules and regulations for those deeds. And to apply it is making you're gonna have an interpretation of how you're gonna handle that. And they can accept that, oh, that's a decent approach to meeting that requirement. For, you know, like,
What happens if we get in a disagreement? That if I get in a disagreement with the planning board over documents that are boilerplate documents per se.
I don't think, for that one, I don't think you'll have a problem, but that's.
So what would it
No,
look
but
like?
this, the hy-
What would it look like if we close this hearing and then there's a change that needs to be facilitated, that we would conduct a new hearing? Is that what you?
I don't think it would be a
We-
I think my opinion
Yeah.
would be, these are items, and I understand you get the communication, that are very common items to be conditioned,
Yeah.
because there's still work to be done on this project.
Yeah,
Again, which is very common for a comprehensive permit, that some of the technical aspects need to be fleshed out further now that we have a fixed plan. So this is very common. These items are gonna be modified regardless of the status that they were in now, because I'm gonna get specific conditions from Mass DEP on the stormwater maintenance, on the well maintenance.
yeah, no,
We're gonna
no
have
question, just for what's the
conservation issues.
process? So just for from a point of reference, when we did Elizabeth Brook, right, we went through that, it took a long time, but they literally supplied all the artifacts before we closed the hearing, right? Different project, different scale, so on. So I'm just trying to understand what we would do to process the changes. How would we do that? Is it just a discussion? Is it a meeting? Is it a
No,
hearing?
it would be the meeting, the permit recognizes substantial versus non-substantial changes.
We could-
So assuming that these umbrella trust and other documents are generally consistent with what we've talked about.
Yeah.
I don't think they're substantial changes, you
right.
accept them as modifications to review them. And that, so I think you can accept what's there as long as there's an understanding that they're gonna be fine-tuned from these different agencies to make sure that they dovetail with the specific decisions that I receive from them.
I think it's
So-
the same process, like with any agreement. You know, if it's a major modification, yeah, we would need a new hearing, but if it's not a major modification, we would just have a meeting.
Right, I think the way I see it is that everyone keeps talking about sort of changes,
Mm.
but that's assuming that there's something final. Like, for example, like if you change the way things look, all right, well, there's a final plan, and now you're gonna change it. None of these are final, they're all basically in draft form, or they're still being worked on because you've got other things that you need to do.
Right.
I think the concern, and people can tell me otherwise if I'm misreading it, there's a concern based on, frankly, what I think we've received is conflicting counsel, conflicting advice, as to whether or not we even have the jurisdiction to say, okay, well, we'll look at that later when you're final. Now, I appreciate the fact that you're like, I wanna come back before you, wanna show you all that stuff, which is great. There is the hypothetical possibility that a year from now or whatever, you finalize the documents and said, I don't need to come back before you. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to. And according to at least one of the council that has advised us, that, their opinion is like, you can't do anything about that. Once you're done, you're done, unless it's an actual change. That's why I think the discussion here is, are there like minimum items that we would want in there? Like, yes, like on the trust, and I'll pick that on because that's what I was looking at. It's a standard document, 90% of it's gonna be boilerplate or whatever, probably based on template. That being said, there was a typo, because Stow acres was misspelled, but anyways, I know, I was like, okay, that's clearly why it's a draft. But if there's an item in there that we don't like today, at least we can say, hey, this is gonna have to change. The rest of it, I think we are taking a slight risk, and I'm saying nominal even, but we have to assume that way, that like, we're not gonna be able to technically sign off on it later, because once it's out the door, it's out the door.
Yeah, or something like that, I guess, if when you finally come up with a final deed and we don't agree with your approach and you don't want to change it, I guess there's always the government state could come in and say, let them review it and see if it's
Can
gonna
do it, yeah, or you can make an argument and say, no, we consider it a substantial change, we wanna have a hearing, and that opens it up, and, so that, you always have that ability with something that I come back with that's different, to say, no, we consider it a substantial change, we wanna have a hearing. But for the presumption from my end, is that the majority of these documents, they don't reflect any type of a substantial change that's really gonna have any type of a impact on the residents of Stow. So if the homeowner's trust document reads slightly different, it doesn't matter to Stow. It matters to the people that live there. Now, for me, it's important that it be fair and equitable, and I think the board has the same issue. But from a practical sense, that it's not really your job,
Well, except, I'm sorry to cut you off, our job is to do things now to set up guardrails and protections for the people who will be living there eventually, so.
No, from that, and I think that, I think that the focus of the plan is the guardrails of what it's gonna be and how it's gonna work. So, I'm just trying to use it as an example, but, those types of things, I don't think that they fundamentally impact the project as it relates to the permits, as it relates to the town. Issues like, the management and maintenance of the path, I think that's something we need to resolve, which I think is outstanding a little bit.
Right.
The conversation about the potential for the roadways, that's substantial, that affects the residents, that affects the town as well. It's important that we have a resolution on those items. But exactly what, what the homeowners trust document says, outside of the fact of outlining the relationship with the trust to whether it's a conservation trust as it relates to, the common areas, which I think that the permit does reflect. I don't think it matters there either. So it is kind of, balancing the needs. I think where we have issues of concern, then absolutely, let's make sure we've got enough wording in there that you're comfortable, that it's completed in a manner that you think is reasonable and appropriate. And, if we want to go through that list from that memo and talk about them. And, we've got draft stuff on just about everything. I think the only thing we really don't have anything on is lighting. And I told you, there's not gonna be any commercial grade lighting on this property. So, you can just say that, lighting will be,
You can comply with the
residential in
regulations.
nature and dark sky or.
The lighting's simple,
Right.
Yeah,
that's
you
just
can put
comply
in a
with
few
the
comments to
regulations.
protect it,
and the building inspector can take care of that.
I think so. And I think all the other items, you have enough information to be able to make decisions on today. Those
Mhm.
trust documents, like I said, if you want to accept them with the changes proposed by the chairman, I'm fine with them, as long as you do understand they will be modified in the future, to incorporate, other entities, then I'm more than fine with that. I don't think they need to be built in now, but if you're more comfortable with having them and them being changed, that's okay.
Like one thing that we put together, the regulations, one concerning the maintenance fee is how much of a kitty is gonna be left for when they trustees, as a board, all 7 of them in your case, take over the trust. Do they have enough money to maintain operation for, say, a year?
There's gonna be very little of a kitty. What's gonna
Okay.
happen from a practical sense
Pay as you
is
go?
over the first 3 years,
Gonna
I'm
collect
probably gonna
it.
subsidize it a couple $100,000.
That's what I figured, so.
And then, so I'm not gonna, leave a tip on the table when I leave on after
Yeah.
it. So there'll be reserve requirements that'll be, demanded by DEP, for both wastewater and for the wells that will need to be set aside. But on a, just like a condominium, condominiums, they pay in, 2 months of reserve and then you deal with it. As a developer, I make up the difference. I've always been very careful. I don't get involved in the money. I hire a third-party management group that the money goes to them. They say, Mark, these are the bills, this is what we need, and we make up the difference. So it never comes into my hands, which just makes it transparent for everybody. So they can see what the cost is, they can see what's contributed from a developer perspective, and what the actual bills are. And then, once they can stand on their own, which will probably not be until there's 70 or 80% of the units in here and dealing with the base cost.
Yeah.
That I've gotta pick up the check. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna give them $50,000 on the way out
Yeah.
as a.
See, I know you're gonna handle it properly. But you can't always depend on, that's you right now. If the management company you hire does things differently, of course, you're always the boss and you'll take care of it. But it's just, there's an uncertainty there that we're trying to
There's
avoid.
an uncertainty in every condominium, there's an uncertainty in any common driveway that happens, that you gotta rely on people to be reasonable and appropriate and do their jobs. But these people are, they're gonna have more of a concern than you do.
Mhm.
So, that's the check on everything. At the end of the day, they're gonna have their counsel that are gonna review their documents, understanding what the expenses are. I'm gonna know at that point what the reserve requirements are, both on an ongoing basis and from an upfront basis. The last, community water supply that I did in Harvard, they came in with an upfront fee that was monstrous. And so people had to pay in at closing to cover some of, we had to pay for it up front, but they had to pay for it at closing. Because at the end of the day, when I'm done, I leave, it's their money, so it shouldn't be my money. So those types of things, to what those values may be, I don't know here, that was a smaller project, this is a bigger project with, more people that can pay in, so it may or may not be prohibitive, I mean, it won't be prohibitive, but, I mean, it was a couple $1,000s per unit, which is a lot of money when, you're winding down, and this is my down payment, and this is my closing, et cetera. So those things are gonna happen, but I have no idea what those numbers are now.
I know.
But the residents are gonna have, an understanding, and their council is gonna have the burden to make sure that it's fair and reasonable before they sign the paperwork.
Having lived in a condominium, I know special assessments are just a part of life. It's never,
It's all the common stuff, the bills are the bills.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
there's
most
gonna
of the
be a
bills are-
portion
Most of the
along,
bills are known, how much it takes
Everybody's
for the
fine.
well and the septic system.
I think we
monthly or
need to move
daily
the
or
discussion
weekly.
back to the decision, because we need to get the decision done.
Thank you.
So-
Yes.
I think the question, as I understand it, is do we want to go through the big policy questions that are outstanding? And it sounds like there's a policy question about how we handle the documents. There's some policy. David, it might make sense for us to hit the policy stuff first and see if we can nail it down.
Sorry, what do you mean by
We're gonna get, well, I'm thinking there is this question about changes to the trust documents. Are the changes that you're proposing things that we think are consistent with what council is recommending? Let's try to
Okay,
get
so-
things in batches.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll go through the list. So on the trust documents, okay, the first issue is the market rate units versus the affordable rate units. Based on the advice of our consultant, is that that's outside our jurisdiction. Which I hadn't appreciated when I was drafting these comments, but I'm happy to accept those. Despite the fact that from my perspective, I still think it's a good idea, but we don't have jurisdiction, we can't do anything about it.
Simple.
The only other sort of, frankly, these were sort of in my opinion, somewhat non-material changes. One could, for example, the developer doesn't turn things over until every unit is sold. Theoretically, you can imagine a more unethical developer sitting on one unit. I don't know why they would, because there's financial aspects in it in order to control everything. And so that's why I put in some language in there saying that, you still need to use efforts to sell, whether we want to do that or not. I leave it to others as to whether or not there's commercial reasons why someone would, not do that anyways. For me, the big one was really actually the Residential Homeowners Trust, Article 9A. As written right now, the developer doesn't give up rights to control it until 1 year after. Well, I think it's like I can't remember if it's the earlier or the later of, like 10 years or 1 year after the last unit is sold. And I personally don't agree with the fact that the developer should be able to hold on to it for a year if every unit has been sold. So that's why I was just saying there should, 30 days, in order to transition. That, for
And
me,
is
that
that
was the biggest one.
is that a Four Corners issue for us? Because it's a standard trust document that DHCP or somebody else is going to be overseeing and not us? Mark?
This isn't necessarily under the jurisdiction of anyone, other than, my obligation to my residents that are gonna be there. So I've said that I'm comfortable submitting the final documents to the board for review, but I don't, it's not necessary, it isn't necessary traditionally. It's not a traditional thing that occurs in a private
Can we submit
development.
these to you as suggestions for you to consider and move forward?
My problem, Ruth, with that is that, to be perfectly frank, a suggestion is, it's meaningless. You know what I mean? Like, we can suggest
No, I
it.
get it. I'm just wondering if they're outside of our four corners kind of anyway, then they are just essentially that, and we need to move on. I'm all about process, David. I'm not here.
No, I understand. I mean,
if
I
I'm
guess from my
blowing
perspective,
substance, tell me.
I'm inclined to simply say, we want it, and then if Mark can either choose to comply, or if he feels like it's outside of jurisdiction, he can take action to do it. I mean, it's his choice. I mean, it's an issue that's not gonna actually it's a matter that won't be at issue for years.
It's not a make or break issue. I think the only reason that it's in there is because there's a potential contemplation that housing is done and the other aspects, the rental components may not be completed. So it doesn't make sense to turn everything over until that happens. I think that was part of the thinking, but I don't think it's a material impact one way or the other. You know, if all the homes are done, it can be done. And then, you know, if the full umbrella trust isn't fully developed at that point, then, you know, that's okay. But I think that was part of it. That was part of the consideration, when it was structured before. But look, from my end with the documents, I'm okay with what you want, if you want them to be considered. Once everything is put together, if something is going to change or be modified, then I'm gonna submit them, and you're gonna decide if it's a substantial change or not a substantial change. And that way we
All
can
right.
move on. Yeah.
That sounds like
All I
closure.
care about is if you address our rules and regulations for comprehensive permits, chapter, section 12, which addresses the homeowners association and how the maintenance is handled and everything. If you address the issues that are brought up there in your final document, I'd be happy.
Fair.
And the homeowner should be aware of that. It's their responsibility, really, but they're not.
They should be. They are grown-ups, they're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
Market or affordable, so they should know what they're getting themselves into, but yeah, I think we can move on from.
Okay, we can address that in the different conditions. Are there other things that you wanted to talk about on this list before we dive into this decision? Operations and maintenance plan?
Like most of it, no, well, I think really the DPW and the Conservation Commission should be more concerned about how things are gonna be maintained, the stormwater is gonna be maintained. We're not an expert in any of that.
Yeah, I think there was an operation and maintenance plan, I think that was within the plans that were submitted. We will be dealing with it in conjunction with getting an order of conditions. Again, that's all really standard stuff, it's not complicated.
And signage, we can always let that up to the
We'll
building
get that
department.
up, we'll
Good
get that, I
bylaws
think
would
we're
cover
all right.
that.
Actually, well, you got the easement plan for trails, that's between you and the Conservation Commission.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a
but it
condition
makes,
there.
it makes specific reference in the
Right,
permit
we'll talk about
of
that.
what it will be,
Right.
so I think that's addressed as an item. So, like I said, other than the lighting stuff, I think we have enough information that we've seen, and the lighting, you can add wording to it that's reasonable and appropriate, I'm not gonna have a problem with it. So,
Okay.
All right, let's go through this decision. Page 1. Oh, this is a small thing, that's my thought. If only I would ask a question like this. Is this a decision on an application for comprehensive permit? Total? I just want it to be accurate, that's all, you know.
You know, technically, I think we're issuing one comprehensive permit that is requiring multiple regulatory agreements to dictate, to oversee the three project as it relates. They issued one site approval letter. I think we can do the one comprehensive permit, where we're recognizing that three regulatory agreements need to be issued and approved for final approval in conjunction with DHCD.
But only one application is filed.
Correct.
Okay, all right, and like I said, I just wanna make sure, not that I'm expecting there to be any issue afterwards, but I don't want there to be confusion as to like, is it one permit, is it three permits? Okay,
No, it is one permit, yes.
okay.
One of the first comments I put in there is that the word, use of will, may, should, and shall. I've always used shall, that to me is a specification requirement, there's no question about it, it shall be this way. That's how our,
I was just gonna say, there have been legal challenges to the word of shall, and some towns actually have to define what the word shall means in their zoning bylaw. And modern practice with planning law suggests using the words will, may, or must, and as.
So may is you have permission, must is you have to do it.
Yes, so
And
must
then
is,
what about can?
can would be under may. and
No,
as
can is a can, you have ability. May is permission. frankly speaking, if that's the definition of those two words. So we need to be clear, I agree.
Okay. I don't,
Well, if there's a section of the decision where people think a different word should be used, we can do so, but
I think most of them should be shall, that's what I think, so.
Well, if you're thinking shall, then it should be must. I understand the ambiguity here, because shall could be,
Right.
it's almost like a can. It's
Right.
You
not
haven't
like a-
read too many government specs, have you?
Right.
It's not mandatory. If you want something mandatory, it should be
I
must.
think we need to
Just-
go with Michael's recommendation of where planning language stands, and if must, if you're thinking shall, then it must be then it needs to be must, is that right? Which is mostly the way you drafted it,
Yeah.
Mike.
Make it must, yes.
all right. Any other issues or comments or questions or changes on page 1? And by the way, Mark, I encourage you to speak up too.
I don't have anything until 13, so.
Excellent, all right. All right. Hearing none, page 2.
So I believe that fine print is.
Page. Mind why the red paragraphs? Just for context.
yes, to provide just a little additional context as to the process before the application was filed.
All right, anything on page 2? If I move too quickly or I miss something, just speak up.
The decision doesn't really start till 12. so-
I know. That's why I don't want to move too fast, but at the same time, All right, page 3.
Good.
Thank you for the peanut gallery. Four. Only because of the reference. Is there anything changed or any news about the Minuteman?
No,
Okay,
no, it's
just- I
really
forgot.
as it is, for the
Okay.
requirements, it's loose until,
Gotcha.
they advance it, so.
Okay. 5. On 18. It's supposed to be plural numbers, 1 through 4.
What do you want there for?
Item 18, turning template plan set, number 1 through 4. I think it's supposed to be numbers 1 through 4. I think it's just typo. Number should be plural to numbers,
Be numbered.
numbered, whatever.
Is it, so is template, it's a
Number.
plural?
Someone suggested way back when removing the S from turning templates, plan set, number 1 through 4.
In that case, I'm sorry, I didn't overrule somebody.
I don't think it had, I can look at the title block to see what it says exactly, but
Don't do that. I'll spare you that one. All right, 6. Seven. Eight. Tenant. I'm just gonna ask, number 3, in terms of the percentages. I'm guessing this was a section that was drafted a while ago. Are the numbers, I mean, just because it's so on the border, the number's still correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just had a vision that 4 homes have been built in the town someplace in the last, whatever, and skewed the numbers.
I have a question on, let's see, on, section 3,
The housing need?
third paragraph down. You know, it says, you know, in the previous paragraph that, you know, we only have like 6.53% affordables. But then in paragraph 3, it says the 2016 housing production plan indicates that approximately 20% of households in Stow meet the income eligibility requirements for affordable housing. What does that mean? In other words, we do have houses that would be affordable, but they're not classified that way?
It means that 20% of the population is considered low income, but we only have housing for 6.5% of the population, so there's a 14% gap.
Could that be rephrased to say what you just said? I think that would be clearer. I mean, at least the way I look at it.
What would you suggest?
It's just what you said. In other words, that 20% of the people living in the town, based on their income eligibility, would qualify for affordable housing.
I think the sentence does
I
say
think it
that.
does say that.
It does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if you understand it better, okay.
That's how it
The
reads.
second-
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
I think it does say that.
All right.
All right, anything else in 10?
My comment down here doesn't apply.
Comment?
Well, there was on the original one.
Oh, I'm
The
looking
one
at this
that-
one.
Oh,
It's the one I provided today.
Oh, it's your comments on that page, Terry.
It's on the next page, right?
Is word wayfinding really a word?
kind of hard to mark things up and
On something here.
have another document to go here.
It's a sign that helps you find your way.
I figured that, okay, thank you.
It's a planning term.
Not in an esoteric sense. Correct.
I looked up at the sky. And I realized, and I saw a cloud and it was a wayfinding sign. So I would meet, I tell you all these things are coming in my head. All right, 12.
Yeah, cottages should be singular in the header for 8, to be cottage.
I'm sorry, say that one more time?
An 8,
In the header for 7,
Yep.
cottage should be singular, not plural.
Correct.
It's
thank you.
singular in the rest.
Good catch.
Just want you to know I was paying attention.
I didn't doubt it, Ruth. All right,
so just
First
to
comment.
go, sorry,
oh, I was just gonna go to the first comment.
me too,
Shoot,
okay,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
So, no, take it away.
No, I was just gonna ask with regard to the configuration of the double unit there. How does that contribute to the overall count? Does that become 1 or is it 2? If we go with
Which ones are we looking at? I'm sorry.
The micro unit,
the micro unit?
The
how
micro
does
units?
it count
they'll-
towards the affordable
I think
housing?
at the end of the day, you're gonna end up with more units. units, because one will probably become 3. So I think each unit
Okay.
has, there'll be multiple housing units.
That's going the
within it.
right way as opposed to the other.
It's going.
Yeah, that's the right way.
Later in the permit, it defines that for the intent of this permit, it's considered 1 unit, even though there could be more than 1 built. In the
No, I think he said something different.
Yeah,
That one of
unit
those
can,
units could
Yeah,
actually
I think we're saying the
substantiate.
same thing. He's saying at minimum it counts at 1. For the purposes of this decision, you've got your 31 units.
Yeah.
As it relates to DHCD, EOHLC,
Right, whatever.
it's feasible that if there's 3 people residing there, you could get credit for 3 units.
Okay,
rather than one.
Times 2, so you could get 6
Yeah.
instead of 2.
that's good, thank you.
Yeah.
And for the 7 and 8, not more than. Does that really need to be there? Don't construct 40.
That was the language that's been in every other comprehensive permit that the town has issued, so it's consistency with that. We can take out not more than if the board is more comfortable with that.
Because you're gonna produce 40, and if he wants to change the number, he's gonna come back with a minor change or a major change or whatever.
So
permit.
I think under 40B, they can do 10% more than what was approved. And that would not be considered a major change, it would be considered minor.
But it says not more than 40, so it limits them, you can't increase it.
So you can't increase it, but they could decrease it. is how it's
I'm
currently
just
written.
imagining that somebody comes back going, oh, shoot, I can only do 39 instead of 40. As written right now, he does not have to come back here. But if he changes it from 40 to 39, he'd have to come back.
And we don't want him to.
Ruth, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
You mean if he comes in with 41, he could have.
Well, either way, no matter how, whether either way, 41, he'd have to come back.
Yeah,
As
41,
written-
you have to come back. At 39, you don't.
39, he would not have to.
Right,
With your
Well,
change, he
39
would.
and below.
I want him to come back if he has to change it to less. If it goes more, I have no problem with that.
Why do you want him to come back?
Because if it goes less, it
Changes the
changes our
equation.
count.
The affordable?
Yeah,
Yeah, it changes the
it
equation.
goes down.
What if it's not, what if he's just getting rid of a market unit? What?
Doesn't say that though.
If 40 goes to 39, you don't lose any affordable units. But I digress. However you want it, it's fine. I have no anticipations of doing
I
either.
think if the
I mean,
practice is
I-
not more than, let's stick with the practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we keeping not more than or deleting it, replacing it word?
I mean, if you want to split the baby, we could come back and we could keep the language as it is, but add in the provision that says, you know, unless it affects the affordable housing calculations. Because that's what you're concerned with.
Yes.
Because if you went to the yank market rate units, I mean, that's a financial decision. I mean, it's a little weaker. You know, if he's yanking affordable units, that's a bigger concern.
Yep.
So, I mean, we could,
So just,
That is what was bothering me more than anything else.
Yeah, no, that's-
But,
no, that makes sense. We could say, grant comprehensive the concern.
so there's 3 places where you wanna strike that, and you can strike it in one but not the others. So the cottages, and so
The cottages and the apartments.
7 and 8.
I will note that all of those units, even though they aren't technically affordable, they all count. So
Yeah. So actually, so taking away a market rental unit would still affect the affordable housing.
it would affect the total, but it wouldn't affect the actual number, because it would still have to be at that percentage. So it doesn't,
I don't know, whatever you like.
I think it's fine the way it is, because like to Michael's point, if they're rental, they're still gonna count as part of the affordable anyway.
Right, but it could affect the town's percentages if he goes from 40 to 38.
Would that affect the tax percentage if it went from 40 to 38?
Because now there's 2 less affordable units.
very slightly
Slightly.
Yeah,
change
yeah,
it.
it
We're on the
would have-
razor's edge as it is.
Yeah, but maybe
But
we
we wanna
should
go
say
that way as
something,
opposed to this way.
we should say something then, because, yeah, that is an important consideration, you know, what our percentage, you know, affordability units are. And that
Can I
is,
just ask bluntly, like, what's the likelihood that the numbers are gonna change?
0.001%.
I mean, I doubt it, you're at the point now where
I
you don't
really
have
can't
to.
imagine anything is gonna, if anything is gonna change, then it's gonna be a whole big change, because something catastrophic happened.
That's right.
It's not gonna be tweaking around the edges for one thing or another. So, I don't expect a catastrophic change either, but, if I don't find any water, that's a problem, so.
Yeah,
And that's not gonna change it a little, that's gonna change it a lot.
Right,
So,
can't find water, and I think we're at 1 unit.
so, I don't think you need to spend a whole bunch of time on it, whether it's in or it's not in, I don't think it fundamentally changes the permit, or changes your rights, or changes my perspective on anything. If I'm gonna change the units, you're gonna know about it, there's gonna be a reason for it. I'd never go down economically if I don't have to, right? If anything, I'd say, hey, I got more capacity, can I add 4 units? So going down there's no economic rationale for me to ever request that, so.
Your overhead goes down the more you
I
build.
feel like the language should,
Wouldn't hurt to put it in as long as it doesn't affect the affordable.
Maria, what were you gonna say?
I feel like the language should just represent, that percentage that we need, just regardless, it is close. So, I mean, a lot of the, just
Yeah.
seems like that kind of cut, right to the core of it.
Yeah, if that's the case, Maria, I sort of agree with you, then we should cut the not more than, keep the numbers as they are, and any adjustment could have an effect, so we want to know about it. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so can we delete not more than for
Apartments and cottages,
decisions?
Well, there's 3 of them in here.
but the other one applies because you can't really predict because of the micro units.
Ones, okay.
So rejecting that comment for the single family houses and keeping for the 2 below, is
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, anything else on page 12? No. 13.
I had a comment, under the, additionally, the board is requiring that 70% of the affordable units must be made available pursuant to local preference. I have no problem with that, but I don't think you can require it. It's EOHLC that makes the determination. I don't want to be stuck in the middle. So I would just request that, that the board is requesting that 70%, and that the developer shall support that request in conjunction with EOHLC, which I shall. But I don't make the decision, you don't make the decision. The town actually has the responsibility to convince the state that you justify the 70%.
So just changing that one word to requesting?
I think that would be adequate.
Yeah, this condition actually, or this part was actually written by council. So that's why I left it as is, but we can, it is under the regulatory agreement section, so there is that additional argument made that anything that we say about.
Council write it, it's not correct.
It's not,
You don't need to answer that, that's okay.
I don't
it's not
know,
correct. You can
But-
request it, but you don't have jurisdiction.
I think putting in that request, putting it as request as requiring is, I think, more appropriate.
Okay, have it, additionally, the board is, well, requesting that no less than 70%. You want to give 75, or do I care?
Yeah, it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be the state that's gonna dictate it, the maximum that they allow
Say
is
requesting
70.
no less than
The
70%.
town will request it. I just don't wanna be hung up with a permit that you're saying it's 70, they're saying it's not, so
Yeah.
where am I? Yeah,
That's fine. Okay. The other comment.
go back to where we started.
Ernie, the issuance of final approval must be provided to the board. You said you wanted to be the select board.
Well, I'll take that back.
Okay.
Because we just discussed how we're gonna handle the trusts, right?
Okay. All right,
Because, again, the selectmen are the ones that have to deal with, cost reporting and all that, not us.
So that was related to the final approval, not the trust.
Right.
yeah, I'm looking at number
Right.
2. you have a reference here saying the issuance of final approval must be provided to the board prior to commencement of construction. You said select board.
Select board. I prefer the select board. And I have no trouble, you brought up, you want the board to receive the information, or the planning department basically to receive the information. But the select board should be the one notified also, I thought.
So I can add in that it'll be to this board, because anything that, well, I'll take it back a step. When I reference submit to the board,
It's not for approval, it's just for,
it's just for everyone here to know
For
what's going
notice.
on. And it's just to show that things are moving, so you're informed about it. And that I maintain that record,
Yeah,
because
that
there are
makes sense.
times where if it's just the select board, they don't send me everything.
Yeah.
but I think they should receive it too,
So I can add in to the select board and this board,
so they know it's happening.
so that, yeah.
Have it say must be provided to the board prior to commencement of construction, comma, with a courtesy copy to the select board. Because we usually want to take the name.
So Michael, on your comment with the implication of the planning department owning or being responsible for any of the ZBA transactions, it says implied, but that's the way the organization is built today. If it changes tomorrow, then that's probably not something you want to imply. You'd like to have that articulated or be specific.
So it could change,
Right.
as you said. So specifying the planning board might not be the best then, it would be this board and whoever staffs this board.
I'm
should
just
be-
objecting to the fact that it's implying something and then not emphatically stating, because if the organization changes at some point, then that's not legitimate.
So then we could just have it say zoning board, because that's essentially
Yeah,
the
okay.
admin for the zoning board, it's just the entity that's going, I mean, Michael's gonna be approving the building permit, or not, I mean, not approving it, but, you'll need to see these documents in
Right.
order to sign off on it, so I think it should stay the ZBA at least.
So take out the reference, or there's no reference in this specifically about.
It's just your comment, that's, yeah.
There's a small typo here, units to be capitalized. Third paragraph. All right. I think we're gonna go through the conditions by number, just easier that way. So anything else with number one? The regulatory agreement? We good?
Good.
All right, two, I think we've already talked about. Three.
3 and 4 are really the same thing. What was the final decision on that?
Hold on. So. I would want at the end of number 4, to the residential homeowners trust, that, I want the condition that it get turned over, that instead of a year, it'd be 30 days. Or 60, I mean, 60, I don't know, some.
Within 60 days, just to give it.
60 days, yeah, because there's gotta be, I appreciate that there's gotta be a transition period, but
But he still has the problem, he's got a rental units that may not be finished with.
But
Well,
this is the homeowners trust,
He's talking
it's not
about
the
the
umbrella,
homeowners trust.
Oh,
not the
okay.
property.
it's just the
Homeowners
homeowners trust. Because my concern was that, was it 124, right?
Correct.
That the way it's written, he could sell all 124
Yeah.
and then goes, oh, but I'm actually gonna be your trustee for another year. And I'm like, that doesn't, personally, I mean, I don't do this sort of work, but that just didn't strike me as right. So, I can't-
So where did that timeframe come from? Is he just already in the boilerplate?
Yeah,
It was in the document.
Yeah, that's- yeah.
Okay.
The conversation that we had, as I
Yeah.
recall, was
Yeah.
Okay.
because these other things may not be done, it might be cleaner to do everything when it's finished, but I understand the point, I'm fine with
I think with Villages of Stow, there's a question of when it was actually turned over versus, is sold out and hadn't been turned over for a long time.
Right.
And that it happens.
Yeah.
It happens. I like to get out of it as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Sure, that's, yeah.
And sometimes associations are a mess and people, and, you know, but we can initiate it. They take longer time. There's not much I can do about that. But we can initiate the change, demand to be off the trust. I can resign. Ultimately, that's what we do sometimes is we just resign our trustee.
And let them deal with it.
So they get hire new ones. Yeah, and it's like, we're done. What do you want me to do? Yeah.
I don't know, I do disagree, just, you know, from, again, having been in a condominium association, sometimes there is a benefit, even though, you know, the, developer only has that one unit for his or her staying on as a trustee, because that person has the knowledge and expertise, and sometimes it's a good transition. So, I don't know, it's just from my own experience.
Yeah, but I think the way the scenario is set up here is that if every unit has been sold, like, it just didn't strike me as, why would Mark or whoever else, like, need another year sitting there?
In other words, he doesn't own even one unit.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he owned one unit.
No, technically, if he owns one unit, he's still the trustee.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think there's a 10-year,
Something.
yeah,
Okay.
there's an end date by which, like, he's definitely out, even if he's still owning units. But
Okay,
this is if every unit has been sold.
oh, okay.
So but I get where you're coming from.
So we agreed on 60 days?
Yeah,
Yeah,
do 60 instead of a year.
Yeah.
So, all right,
And just to clarify, so are you accepting the documents as they are, and modifications will be, I forget what the final resolution was that we talked about earlier.
yes,
We kind of bounce around. You're gonna accept the documents
As a
as
draft.
they are, as the draft.
yes,
Okay,
yeah, with that one change
okay.
as being required. I'm gonna use the red line numbers, so 5, which is the rental management company. I think this is the same issue before as to where it goes. Are you any concerns?
I'd use the same wording that you did in the other one. Whatever you want to.
And if you want, we can keep having other people get courtesy copies. I mean, the flip side is, I mean,
You
do you
just wanna
guys,
know who it is.
I mean, do you
just
guys
wanna
send,
know the content,
I mean, do you
right?
guys circulate the, I mean, if you guys send it to other departments?
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, it's incumbent upon them to make sure everyone else knows. Maybe your call.
I prefer them listed to have them send a separate copy.
Okay,
That way you know they get it.
all right, so,
So to the building department and planning department?
You're gonna get it as a part of the board.
submit to the board with a courtesy copy to be provided to the building department and the planning department. So. No, if Michael's on vacation, you know, they still get it. All right, 6, maintenance of common infrastructure. This is the public way issues.
Yeah, I'm going to send, I'm gonna revise my letter to reference all of the streets in that
Plan
letter.
lanes.
I would request that it is stated in the affirmative, that the intent is that these be common ways subject to, that these be public ways subject to town approval.
I don't think I've ever known the town to turn down a request, so.
So, and I may suggest, presuming that the board is closing the hearing, then you recognize that a statement from me regarding this will be coming in tomorrow.
Yep.
Post meeting.
Yeah, we'll recognize that. Let's just submit that in writing. So here, Michael, we suggesting that we delete the second sentence and that the first sentence be revised to say, unless accepted by the town as a public way, all streets, drives, lanes, and ways. We'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. In the last sentence of the first paragraph, I think the way we can do with the comment is I would say, the town of Stow must not have responsibility for the maintenance of any privately owned streets. That way, if there aren't any, we don't have to worry about it. And if there are, they're a tack way, I think we're covered.
That means you're going to put monuments on them and everything too, because you'll have to deed those right away to the town.
Courtesy copy comment, probably paragraph 2, it's the highway department, so same sentence there. This is probably a silly question. So, like in the last paragraph, we have a reference to Clubhouse Way. If the name changes, I assume that it's, I mean, that's technically it's a minor change. We recognize that and then we're done. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And this references what the approved plans are.
Right, okay.
And back to paragraph 6, the second paragraph of 6. Prior to the issuance of building permit, an operations and maintenance plan must be submitted to the board for approval. We don't want to approve anything, so.
Consideration.
For
Yeah.
review.
It should really be presented maybe to the highway department of public works.
We could have it reviewed by our peer review engineer.
Oh, yeah, but that costs some money.
No, that's reflected, it's discussed, you have a section on peer review where it
Okay.
talks about that stuff.
Okay,
So I think you're protected there.
I'm trying to protect your expenses there.
No, I appreciate it, but
I think the
peer review can be, I mean, having
Yeah.
peer review can be helpful
Yeah.
for exactly for these reasons. That
Yes,
they provide the expertise that the board may not have, and, they know what, it's all standard stuff. They all use the same documents, so I'm not overly worried about it.
Anything else in section 6, maintenance of common infrastructure? And 7, cost certification.
they're only responsible, they're only responsible reporting to the state, they're not responsible for reporting to us. They should probably send us copies of it to the selectmen, so if the selectmen want to have a separate auditor go in and verify things, they can.
They don't really have the jurisdiction, it's all the state
I know.
jurisdiction. So I read it that we provide a copy to you as it's submitted to the state, and the state gets it, they review it, then they submit it back to the town with their comments.
Oh, okay.
So it's, they send it to the town has a 30-day review period from DHCD or Mass Housing when they issue their report to see if there's any questions, concerns, problems. Half the time, towns never respond to it, and at that point, then it's live, and I can get, I've got to bond money for it. I can't get my money back until that's released. So the cost certification is done. That's the hook. Make sure that it gets done. So
Our major concern was, does it get done? Because sometimes
It
the
has to
state
get-
drags its feet for a long time and
they used to, they don't anymore.
they don't even know.
They're very aggressive.
That's good.
If you don't have them submitted on a regular basis, you can't file for new ones. So they're much more on top of it than they used to be.
Okay. That was our concern in the past.
And it was valid. Yeah. But that has changed.
All right, 8, site design.
So am I adding select board to 7 or just keeping it to this board for the submission?
I would send it to the selectmen too, just so they know just to inform that they met their requirements. and-
DHCD will send it to the board of selectmen.
Okay.
That's where we're going. So then that section, I really will.
Sorry, silly question. Maybe I just noticed it before. Sheet 27 is under 8, site design. Pile lane, P-I-L-E.
I think that was a mistake. It's building. Yeah.
It's a mistake in the plans, not in this.
Oh, really?
I got a comment in
You
there.
mentioned it. I had mentioned, I think it was updated.
Well, there's the reason to
I
reject.
think it was updated.
Can we go
I
back to
forget
the
where the mistake was.
Can we
but
start
yes.
over?
But the
The
most
plan
current,
says pile lane.
the most current copy that I have, I don't know if it's been updated since.
I know he did it on this when we made the changes, showing the different open space, because we had talked about it, and he made the change on that. So whether it's percolated through the whole plan set, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was just
This
that,
says Bill,
yeah, it was in the title block
Yeah.
of one of them.
there was a
so-
mistake somewhere, I did go through it with the end, so.
Okay. So we're keeping it this way here.
We're keeping it this way because we haven't been sent the revised
Okay.
sheet.
But you can add a notation if you want, it would be
No,
safe.
How about the landscape plans?
Do,
because he did submit those
They were submitted to the board.
L4.
Would you, yes, would you want that to be included here? Did
I don't know, it just, it makes it complete what he submitted, maybe, I don't know.
the board hasn't yet had too much discussion over the landscaping plans, so we can just say that it shall generally conform to the landscape
I think
plans,
that's right.
Okay,
and that can be,
Can stick it as a condition.
I can add another condition in here,
Yeah, it's just might be easier.
just about after,
Between 8 and 9.
yes.
Don't kill me. I always wonder if we need to have a parenthetical on sheet 27 just to note that Tyler may be a typo. So, I'm just imagining that someone gets hit by we all get hit by a bus and someone picks us up later going, wait, we get 2 different names here.
I can do the brackets, or do Phil.
That's
Everybody likes, and nobody likes Phil anymore, so. He lives on
It
it.
was funny, you used only his first name, but there's no Mickelson one, unlike
It
the
was kind
other.
of a mouthful, so I think, what I went with, yeah. Had an extra one.
9, there's that.
Yeah, 9,
more
sorry,
than.
project must consist of not more than 1
On number 9, is that another one that should say like also
Yeah,
not more than or less than?
I think we can just say it must consist of 189 units.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Maria. All right, 10, building design. Who highlighted the general?
I highlighted that because it was a small change that I made since the board last reviewed it.
At my request.
Can I ask why?
It's just so, you know, that there's a little flexibility, there's gonna be minor changes that happen. We want the look and feel to be consistent, you know, generally indistinguishable as compared to indistinguishable. It provides a little flexibility for everybody, that's all. We have generally above, so I'm just being consistent.
So I'm gonna take each one of those house designs you had and compare them, each one down the line.
I guess the only
They're
reason
exactly the same.
the only reason I'm asking is because the implication is, the first sentence makes total sense, that all dwellings have to generally conform, so you make little tweaks, that's okay. The second sentence, however, implies that the affordable units can have slight differences in the market rate units, which would, as a result, allow someone to figure out which ones are which.
No, it says that they're generally indistinguishable, there's, you know, there's gonna be variations on all the homes. Really, the goal is, if you drive through the property, you don't say, oh, that's affordable, that's affordable, that's affordable. And I think those would be generally indistinguishable.
I could
That's all.
strike that last sentence and just say, generally conform architectural style for mass to the presented plans, just so it doesn't call out the affordable units.
I mean, I think you have that ability out of the first sentence, as it is. It doesn't mean that they all have to be exactly the same, it just says they generally have to.
As long as you generally understand what I'm doing. Generally fine.
How about this, strike the second sentence, and then instead of all dwellings, it should say each dwelling must generally. That way, it provides.
You could just say all market and affordable must generally.
The affordables have to be A-frames.
Yeah.
If we're gonna say Mass DEP, it's either gonna be Massachusetts or.
I believe earlier,
Oh, did we actually,
I
you did? Okay, never mind,
called
sorry,
it out.
I missed that. There's just a period missing at the end of the word. All right, anything else, sorry, on number 10, building design? Number 11, number of buildings per lot. There's a double period at the end of A. Building height.
Did Did you include the memo from the fire department in that?
Yes.
13, additional plans for submission and approval.
Boy, it's gonna appear many times in there.
We need to say in there that it's the building inspector or building department to approve any lighting that goes in. The exterior lighting, the interior lighting, we don't care about.
Should we add just that, you know, it has to be in conformity with the
Yeah.
lighting bylaw?
It's somewhat duplicative, but what we can do is at the end of the beginning, the applicant must provide the following plans to the board for approval prior to the issuance of the first building permit, comma, provided that the plans are in conformance with the applicable zoning bylaws.
Stow,
whatever we call
Stow lighting bylaw.
them. We're just, there's the bylaws,
Okay,
you know, because we talked about signage also.
oh, that's right, yeah, Stow bylaws.
Sorry, can you repeat what that, provided that
Provided that the plans are in conformity with the applicable zoning bylaws, or whatever term it is. I'm sorry, remind me why the last sentence of A is in there, exterior lighting fixed to the buildings don't need to be included.
You didn't have to get the light outside your back door approved.
Yeah.
Much
Actually,
that's generally, we don't look for residential like lights on a house, it'd be more lights on street lights
Oh,
yeah.
and anything like lights that would light up a pathway.
He's not gonna do it, but that doesn't mean the homeowner may want to stick a floodlight on the back of their house.
they're allowed to.
It's an association
Yeah,
trust.
there's gotta- You gotta meet the bylaws like everybody else.
But that's not a bylaw. It may be an HOA issue, but.
Yeah, if someone has a floodlight, I have a floodlight on the back of my house, it doesn't say I can't
If it's less than 2,000 lumens, it's exempt from the zoning bylaw.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
So
not asking for waivers to
I
any of
know.
those things, so
I know.
I don't.
I know you're not.
Even the lighting stuff, from a practical sense, I don't think I asked for any waivers, so
Okay.
whatever lighting I do needs to be compliant, so you don't need, it was, again, courtesy to give you a sense of what we're doing, but you don't need to approve it because
Yeah.
it needs to comply,
Yeah, all right.
so
The,
strike it, really.
so B for the signage, those are the examples that you brought in, I think, last time?
Yeah.
Okay, are those technically submitted as part of the record?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, can we add a sentence that say like, the signs will generally conform with the ones that we.
I think you have it
It
further.
says that, isn't
Oh,
it?
does it?
Yeah.
Further in, there's
The
comments
the
about it,
last
so
sentence.
I don't know if it needs to be, I don't even know if this section needs to be here because he makes reference to it later.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
left B in here because I didn't know if the board wants an official sign plan or
Oh.
there's a condition later that talks about what is required of signs.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So we can table it for now and scratch it later or keep it.
Well, I'll just add, I'd rather just do it now. Do people want a formal signage plan?
In the past, if, on the drawings and the site plan and everything, they just have, and that's like the stop sign, where the stop
Yeah,
signs
yeah.
go, and just an indication in the one page to have samples of each type of sign. That'd be pretty simple, so I'm fine with this. And coming up with a plan and presenting it to the building department, and say is this adequate, or the police department to see if it's adequate. I don't know.
What does everybody else think?
I mean, I think if he's following the bylaws and the various groups that need to, departments that need to finally approve it, it should be fine.
Is there some highway, standard, national highway standard for signage on when they should be there and not be there and everything?
I believe so. Within the property, it's different from outside the property, so, I mean, I intend to have speed control, we'll have stop at intersections.
Yeah.
It's pretty intuitive what what the signage needs to be,
Mhm.
the handicap
I know
parking,
that. So,
you know. So I don't necessarily think, the ones that to me were important to share with the board was that entrance sign, because it,
Yeah.
you know, it is gonna be of more substance. You know, the wayfaring signs is something that isn't traditional, that you wouldn't necessarily have in a subdivision. So I wanted you to see those. Otherwise, the street names are gonna be your standard signs, which is in the memo. And then any other signs are gonna be, you know, a stop sign is a stop sign, a speed sign is a speed sign. So I don't think that there's anything irregular beyond that. We'll need to comply as appropriate, you know, so.
I mean, does the state have sort of a
I don't know.
Generally
regulations or
accepted
the, either,
standards, you know, you've got two streets intersecting,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a stop sign, so.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, I think that's all pretty straightforward.
It's all common sense.
It is, yeah.
So,
I think if it says, complies with the sign
let's just-
bylaw, I think it should be okay.
But, the safety signs and all that, that's not really controlled by the bylaw.
Right.
That's just for personal signs that you wanna stick up, or business signs.
Okay.
It's a lousy bylaw, but it's,
Alright, anything else for 13?
and we can't even control what they look like. Right?
Anything else for 13?
No.
Okay. 14. Oh, wait, hold on. What's the last sentence?
That was 12. So 13 is the easement plan, which I agree with, that we should have a easement plan.
Wait, is that a separate one? Or is that the new C?
It got messed up
Oh, okay.
in here, so it should be C, but it's under the 13 that's struck out.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure, okay. I'm pretty much sure.
Okay, so that's not 13. All right, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's fine. You should have 13.
Kathy had a comment.
Yeah, okay. All right, any concern, Kathy, you're here. Anything else that you wanted to add based on the comment?
No, though I guess there's a question about maintenance of the trail.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is that the easement make clear that the town has the right to enter onto the trail for the purpose of maintenance if the association fails to. But not that the town would be responsible for maintenance of the trail. That's never something that we expected to be doing.
Right, and for me, if we're making this a public trail for the benefit of the public, and, so what are the maintenance expectations, and why should it be on the residents?
Right. I agree.
That's
So-
later.
So I
trail
mean,
maintenance
I
is-
can address that a little bit in that, one, the town doesn't have the capacity to maintain this trail at this time. We may at some point in the future as we take on the bigger Stow project, but it's not something we can do now. Two, it's not clear to me what maintenance involves, so if a tree falls down across the trail and we need to come and clear it, that's not a big deal. If there's a meter wash out of the trail and there's new stone dust needed or something like that, you don't have the resources for that,
Is there an expectation that this trail is gonna be plowed in the winter?
no.
Okay.
Okay, well, actually, hold on, let's just,
I'm making sure. I
And
don't know.
let me
That's
just
the
say,
question, but
the
exactly
third,
what
the
the
third
intent
issue for me, and perhaps the most important one, is the only precedent that I can think of is Arbor Glen, where we have public trails that are on condo association land, and then that extends onto town land. And in my experience, the association wants a level of maintenance that goes far beyond what we would typically do with a trail. They want the edges of the trail mowed weekly or every other week so that there's not any issues with ticks. They want it to look a certain way, whereas we would typically mow our trails, say, twice in a summer. So I just worry that the association is gonna want a level of maintenance from the town that we can't provide.
okay, let's just table that just for a second, because
Sure.
there's 3 sections deep.
It
into-
comes up later.
Right, so I wanna just hit it then. So, but for right now, just with respect to the plan itself, I think your comment,
So there should be two documents, one is the easement plan and the other is the actual easement conveyance, was my comment.
right. And that's already covered here, right?
It just talks about the plan.
I mean, do. Oh, sorry, go
Okay,
ahead.
do you depend on the highway department to provide your trail maintenance?
No.
It's strictly volunteer,
It's strictly staff,
gives you something to do.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, for me, the question, it goes to the same thing of the expectations, that like if the public is saying, oh, well, this needs to be done, we're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Trails
Yeah,
there, you
Mark,
go.
I think in reality, now living around this stuff, it's gonna be the residents that are gonna care the most about it. So I think it probably
Okay.
make, you know,
I think as long as, I don't want expectations put on the association that might be unfair. So that's.
yeah, I think what
what
Kathy's
my
looking.
concern was. So,
Right, well,
I think you generally, I generally agree with both of you that the residents will probably have more issues with the maintenance and it being done, it being attractive. But, you know, that being said, I don't want the town saying, you've got to do this.
Right.
Yeah, they
That
should.
we don't agree with. So
Yeah.
anything along those lines, I'm comfortable with, because I generally agree with what you said.
Okay, hold on, okay. That, all the stuff that deals with that, that's in like 50. 51, 52, 53. So let's deal with it then. I just wanna focus on this section here for the plan. What needs to be done. The only thing that I'm picking, that I think based on Kathy's comment, is indicating the easement plan should be recorded, which I don't think is reflected here.
No, it's that there's two separate items. One is an easement plan,
Right,
and the other is the actual document that says this is an easement that's conveyed to yada, yada, yada. So there's two documents that get recorded.
And that, within that easement agreement, really could address some of the issues that we're talking about.
And the easement would reference the plan.
Okay.
It's like a deed of easement, actually, is sort of the way that it works. It's an easement document and then an easement plan.
Correct.
Okay, so,
how about liability for the use of it, right?
okay, that's later. We're literally dealing with just the basic document. I just wanna deal with this section, then we'll talk about all that
Yeah.
afterwards. Squirrel tax you, we'll figure it out.
There.
Fair.
So, there, exactly.
There.
So, we might need to tweak this because I don't read this as indicating like two separate documents.
I can
As-
address that.
Okay, that would be great, yeah. Is there anything else here?
so what are we gonna have that say?
Something about easement plan and recording in the easement.
The
Is
deed
that,
of easement.
yeah,
And,
Basically, the plan showing where you go and then an agreement outlining the rights that you have within that easement.
Kathy, you also said instead of milestone by which this needs to happen.
Yeah. So is this all, like, when would the actual recording happen? Is the
The
question.
recording wouldn't happen, so, I mean, there's some areas that, you know, we'll identify where they are, I think, as, I would probably say to make sure that it's correct, because it's intended to be somewhat organic, that,
Yeah.
you know, that when the trail is completed, then the easement document is done at that point to make sure that we do it once and it covers the trail as it's constructed, so.
So
to
it
me,
wouldn't be, say, before building permit, but it might be before,
Prior, like the final occupancy permit,
yeah, something like
something
that.
like that.
Say final occupancy, yeah,
Yeah.
final occupancy on the property, that's
Right,
fine.
right. Everything that-
Yeah.
Okay, I want something realistic so that.
Yeah, no, I think
You know.
that's reasonable, it's,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be before building or before the first occupancy, because it will.
you don't know yet.
Prior to the last occupancy, I think is reasonable, sure.
Excellent. 14, final plans.
The word board appears, approval of the board. I think we discussed that the exterior lighting and that signage is not the board, it's existing town boards.
Where are you already?
14, it says boards.
Second paragraph.
Approval by the boards as one final submission prior to the commencement of construction.
It's on 15.
And I think that has to do with the exterior lighting plan and the signage plan and the easement plan, and the board's not involved in those. It's a building, it's a For lighting, it's the building inspector.
So again, though, if it's provided to the board, then it's provided to staff, and staff
Yes.
do need to make sure that these.
It just says approval, so that's for approved by, and we're not approving it.
But I don't think they've got the decision-making power to approve it.
They,
Unless you give it to
Unless
us.
you give it to us.
So can we go, if we go back to 13, so it says the applicant must provide the following plans to the board for approval prior to the issuance of the first building permit. Is that all going to now be the building inspector, or is it still going to be submitted and approved by the board?
building inspector.
What do people think?
Could you read that again?
The applicant must provide the following plans to the board for approval prior to the issuance of the first building permit. And then it references the lighting plan and the signage plan and the easement plan.
I think it should go to the board, and if the board will rely on the building inspector anyway, and in fact, vice versa, the building inspector may come back to the board anyway. So why don't we, maintain the approval process?
But isn't that potentially opening us up to a challenge?
So
Or not.
our counsel said that we are allowed to have a few things come back to the board for approval, but she has recommended that it remains limited. If everything is complying with the zoning bylaw, that is something that someone else can review because we have those guidelines already.
Mhm.
If there are a few things that go outside of the bylaw that the board is looking for, it would need to be descript in what it wants to see, and then it can come back to the board for approval. And that is the recommendation, so it's not a black and white issue, it's if you do this, then this, if you do that, then that.
Actually, each one of those, exterior lighting, the building inspector can do that. Signage, the highway department or building inspector can do that. And the easement plan, the conservation commission can do that.
But all three are just being looked at to see if they're complying with the bylaws.
That's right.
That's the only reason we're doing it, right? I mean, unless just, right?
That's what we just, I thought the signage we kind of addressed, like in the exterior lighting, again. I think we're just saying that
Yeah, we have
yes, that it
bylaws
is
that
in
govern
compliance
it,
with
right?
bylaws.
I think what we
We're
could
not
do.
requesting any changes.
Yeah, I think we could reword it, whether it be in 13 or 14, is to indicate that these things are being submitted in order to ensure compliance with the local bylaws, as opposed to being sent to us for approval, saying we don't like the lighting or whatever.
So it could be additional plans for submission, period.
Yep.
And then the applicant must provide the following plans for review and approval, because whoever it is would have to approve it.
Yeah.
Prior to the issuance of the first building permit. Exterior lighting, signage, here both are referencing the zoning bylaws, so that could be the building inspector.
Right.
Or the planning department, or whoever.
Right.
The easement one easements are not necessarily within the building inspector's purview.
Right.
It's something that the planning department could handle, or the conservation commission could handle.
Right.
So we would need to identify.
Yes.
I don't know, the easement plan was gonna be finalized later, I thought we just agreed,
So
so not in advance, not before building permits, but
we would,
prior to the last occupancy.
so we would
Yeah.
take C
Yeah.
out, make it a new condition
Correct.
as additional plans for submission prior to final occupancy.
Right.
And then the 13 would just be prior to the first building permit.
In order to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaws.
Yes.
Okay.
So A and B are gonna be building inspector. Who do you want C, the new condition, to be for?
Kathy knows the most about
I
easements.
think I would have to do the conservation commission,
Would you like it the commission or the conservation director?
the latter.
Should be the department.
I'd like it to be Kathy, period, say that, capital K.
Yeah, conservation department.
Should be the department.
Department?
Yeah.
And that's equal to the building inspector, with the lighting and the signage.
See, we're useless. Look at this. We have no purpose.
There's no special conditions.
We're not experts, that's for sure.
Yes.
Okay, 15, construction manager.
Construction management, okay. And what's on 18 when you get there.
Okay, so 15, 16, and 17. Let's get courtesy copies to the people listed here, same as you before. Okay, anything else from people from 15, 16, 17?
No.
Okay, 18, question?
Yeah, I mean, 7 to 5 during the week is consistent. On Saturday, it has 9 to 12, which doesn't provide much time for anybody to get there and actually do anything.
Yeah.
We typically do like a 9 to 4.
Yeah,
So
That's
I have the
silly.
benefit of.
This
taking
is an
advantage of
isolated
Saturday.
area. There's there's very
There's
few
not a whole
homes
bunch
around
out
there.
there yet, and so, I mean, at least guys wanna go there to work, like they can get a full day's pay, that's what, I want to make sure they can do.
I'm sorry, so you wanna go to when?
I would, I mean, I'd love 9 to 5, but at least 9 to 4 on Saturdays would be requested.
Can
Why do we have
do-
jurisdiction over that at all?
Oh, it's not in the general bylaws, but it is something that has been done for other subdivisions, other special permits and things of that nature. Just to ensure that there is some.
Having work hours is common, and I understand, I'd like Saturday to be productive, that's all.
It's
I
for
kind of,
common courtesy to the
I lean
abutters.
towards a normal work day on Saturday, just because it's, in the absence of a compelling argument not to do it, I think.
So can we just say Monday through Saturday, period?
Monday through Saturday works too.
Yeah.
So 5 p.m. Okay.
Can,
Saturday.
all right, I'm gonna be a nudge. Can we make it 4 on Saturdays? The only reason I'm thinking is that like, after daylight savings.
And
Like-
1 hour is gonna be the difference?
Yeah, but at 5 o'clock, it's dark.
Right.
Saturday.
They're
They're
gonna
not
be-
I guess I'm
so they're not
being-
gonna be working, you're kinda.
Right, they're not
it's
gonna be
next
working,
summer.
right.
I guess
Or
I'm
they're
being,
gonna be inside.
I guess I'm being considerate to the fact that there are a couple homes that are gonna be
Yeah.
affected.
That's another
For
issue.
1 hour.
Well, all right,
Yeah,
well,
I'm just playing the other devil's advocate.
See, we've had issues when other things are being built. The construction guys going, the houses are closed, he goes on the weekend and late at night or Sunday, working inside, bang, 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 and the neighbors complain.
Hey, look, I deal with it all the time,
Yeah.
like I said, I understand there
So,
being a need for hours,
Yeah.
but, look, us getting in there and getting out of there quick is the best thing
Oh,
for
no,
any
no,
of
no,
the
no.
residents.
Yeah.
So having a Saturday to be productive is important. Sunday, I'm okay without it, without work happening, but Saturday I'd like to be productive, that's all.
Can we do 4, sorry.
I agree with you, David,
Okay.
4.
Okay, so 4 on Saturdays.
you can get granted for other hours on Sunday, like if you go to the building commissioner, he can
Right.
approve other hours.
In fact, I'd even go lower than that, I'd say to 12, but, because that's what we do with every other project, I don't know why this one.
Wow.
Because he's trying to get it done.
And mostly it hurts the guys that are working there because they have to pay to commute in and and these guys are, and I want to be fair to the guys that work there.
Right, they're not gonna do anything on Saturday. Cause I wouldn't wanna go for 3 hours and spend,
Not worth
it
it.
takes them an hour to set up, for my sake, excuse my language, but it does, yeah.
Right, yeah.
All right, 19, 20, and 21.
Oh, good.
You good?
Yep.
All right, 22, 23. 24, sequencing. I didn't see a period on G.
That's all reasonable. The intent is that we've got a looping roadway for health and safety and everything to function, so I'm good with that.
Getting back on 17 just real quick. It says, we're finding that, this has to do with pre-construction meeting. It has us, all the boards consulting engineer, it's not, it's the building department's consulting engineer. Because he's being permitted to hire a consultant. Not us, we're not hiring
Later,
them.
later it does reference the third-party review
Yeah.
as under the authority of the board.
It is not,
And that was a recommendation from council. So we're giving,
a third-party review, but he's not working for us, he's working for the building department.
I would argue the opposite, that they're working for the board, because for the permit holder. And ensuring that what's being done is compliant with what you have set out in this permit.
Is there a concern with it being under the board versus the building inspector?
It's just, we're out of the loop, that's all.
It can be planning department, I mean, we're the
Planning
ones
department.
doing the billing, so
Okay.
we're doing the day, Michael will be doing the day-to-day, you know.
I'd rather have the planning department,
Yeah, that's fine.
Who signed the contracts in whose name?
not ours.
It's
It's-
under the planning department, so I mean,
Oh, then if it's that, then it's whoever's name is in the contract, it's their engineer.
Current one that we have with Jillson Roy's under the board's name.
yeah, that
Oh,
one
But
is.
that was for this effort.
Should there be a new one then?
There'll be a new effort.
So
It's
You'll
the
have to
same-
get another bid from him and have the
I think
funds
it's
and
the
everything.
same, it'll just be the same account.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
It's not a typical procurement process.
would there be a new agreement signed?
I think so.
We can take a look at the last one.
His whole task to change.
Alright, well, just put a note and
He's actually gonna be doing some field work for ours. He was not doing any field work. He was just
Yeah,
doing paperwork.
I'm more used to the planning board, which is just like a 5-year contract with
Yeah,
one person instead
right.
of per project, so. Yeah, we may have to just sign a new contract with,
I think that'd be
Yeah.
cleaner.
yeah,
for me, it's the contract. It's like,
Yeah.
if he's contracted to do something, whoever the town is, you know, if it's us, then it's us, so. 25, demolition.
You know, I had asked him to clarify that, you know, that there's no buildings on the property, so.
Except
it
the
really
pump
isn't much
house,
of an
right?
issue. There's the pump house that is already falling apart.
Yeah.
I don't wanna get a debt permit to
Yeah,
pick up
really.
the mess. That was the main goal, yeah.
so strike it.
I don't think you need the first sentence. I think you just say prior to the issuance of the building permit that we'll clean that up. There literally are no
Yeah.
other structures on the property that are there.
Yeah. If he finds a structure, it can come back. 26, lot identification.
I had requested that he just clarify their construction, meaning I got 6 houses being built, they're labeled, so.
Oh,
everybody knows
that's the reason why it says under construction.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's 124 lots out of 124 sites. They're gonna get run over, they're gonna be lost, they're gonna be gone. So homes are going under construction, they're gonna be labeled so we can get deliveries, et cetera. And I think that works to the intent of the board, that it's clear what we're building, but the other ones, no, doesn't, having a stick in the middle of the field doesn't mean anything to anybody.
27, 28, 29, comments. Third-party inspections. The highlight,
I think the board and the applicant should have a decision on how frequent site inspections would be. I just put, general.
Yeah, I personally don't think it needs to be a specific time frame. I think it's more related
That's
to the
measurable.
nature of the work. So where you talk about the items that need to be inspected, there's sometimes they may need to be out there 3 times a week if we're doing things. There's other times, it could be 2 months before there's anything of substance for them to look at. So,
In that case, why don't we say, can we say the inspection of the site? Inspections of the site will be conducted as needed, but under no circumstances, no less than quarterly. I mean, I want some maximum, like, I don't want, not that I'm expecting it to go 6 months without an inspection, but I'd like a.
there'll be time, once the roadway is in and I'm just dealing with homes, it may not need to be out there.
Which is fine, but then I'd rather there be that conversation going, hey, nothing's happened, that's fine, so.
So who makes the decision as?
Well, that's my question, so how does the inspector know to go out to check it out?
The building inspector would probably know, or,
Well, I think, perhaps in the agreement, we can make sure that it's highlighted. That the planning department will do an agreement with them highlighting key things to be inspected, if you want it to be in more detail than what's here, so.
And then I picture we,
on the, your storage treatment. Who gets involved in the inspection of that? The state,
It's not-
all the way,
No.
including the lines to all the houses and everything?
Um,
Or are we going to be doing that? It probably has to be inspected.
I mean, that would be, 10 feet out is plumbing,
So
so,
it's plumbing.
plumbing is gonna make sure that they tie into the pipe properly, but that's the extent of it. The lines in the street, just,
Same with the wastewater,
like
it's the
water
same,
lines.
the state's got that.
Water lines, wastewater, all
Okay.
that stuff is gonna be in there, so.
So do they typically send out inspectors to check to make sure you're doing it to,
And they do periodic inspections, I don't wanna overspeak in terms of exactly
Okay.
what their specific requirements are. I don't wanna be wrong, but they do they inspect all the key items. They're not, DEP is not super worried about, the pipe that goes, everything that happens in the building, the treatment. The septic system is heavily inspected, the pipe that connects the two, it's a pressurized line. It's gotta be a pressurized line, that's gonna be tested and approved. Our engineer will need to certify that that has been tested.
okay,
So that all happens as a matter of course, and at the end of the day, it's in my interest, I require that they test the lines, cause if there's a problem,
yeah.
it's gotta be dug up and directed,
Yeah.
so, but
So it's not our peer review engineer going off and doing
no,
necessarily?
no,
Okay.
no, I
That's
see
all I
them
wanted.
inspecting drainage to make sure that
Yeah.
it's done properly. That the gravel base for the roadway, particularly if we're looking to be public,
Yeah.
that it's done properly, that the paving is reasonable and appropriate.
Okay.
But those are the key things that, the peer review is gonna be dealing with, so.
Okay.
so I'm sort of inclined for that line there. I mean, is it really, inspections will be conducted based on when the,
I think you can take out the highlighted section, maybe
Periodically
site may
as
be
required.
conducted by
As
the
required.
third
By who?
party.
By the building
He may
inspector or
inspect.
okay, then it should be by, I want that said. The inspection,
building department.
yeah, the inspections of the site will be conducted, I want may, will be conducted as
As required.
as required by the building department.
Did you want to put a time dimension as well?
Yeah, which inspections will take place no less than quarterly? I don't know.
I think I'm a little unclear as to how planning and building are co-managing.
Oh, sorry, if I misspoke, I apologize. I just want there to be, I don't like it to be, to simply say the inspections will take place as needed. Why don't, because I don't know what that means.
How much involved are you gonna be in the building process, the construction process? It'd be mainly the building inspector, I would think,
I mean,
because you don't know when to
The building-
require.
The building inspector doesn't really deal with roadways and drainage.
Oh,
stuff.
with
That's
that
not-
drainage and
Well,
roadways,
That's really what this is the focus on, I think, is the planning board has
Okay.
the expertise to understand what's right, what's
Okay.
wrong,
Then he was playing.
and what those
Okay.
issues, so it is the building department. This,
I just want someone named as to, they're the ones responsible for saying, yes, we want an inspection.
yes,
yeah, I mean, if this is handled the way a subdivision is, it would be planning department.
Okay,
So will be conducted by the contracted third-party inspector as required by the planning departments.
Can we just say, why do we need to put the caveat about the third parties, the planning board, right? the planning department is going
I think it's
to,
I
how
mean,
they do
usually,
it, how they do it is immaterial.
I think it's better to have it in there because it talks about the accounts and how it's funded and that
Okay.
stuff. And that's a pretty traditional process, so
Okay.
that wording is fine and understandable to people in the business, so.
Can we also change the next part where it says the third party may inspect? I want to say the third party will inspect. May inspect makes it sound like there are some choices, like I want to inspect and make these things.
I guess, is there anything else then that the board would want inspected related to construction? These are what we have typically, and I don't think there's anything else needed, but
I mean, unless you wanted to catch all, which is like, essentially like, he'll inspect anything that the planning department deems necessary. I mean,
I think those are the items, you wanna make sure what's going in the ground is good, and then you get an as-built, which you have,
So
so.
does the planning department have any responsibility to make sure that the state does what they're supposed to do, or are they just on their own and regardless, they walk away when they're done?
It's state jurisdiction, just like, if it's a septic system, the board of health signs off. It's not the building department, it's not the planning department here,
Okay.
DEP has that role of the board of health, so.
anything else on 30? Third party inspections? Excuse me. Can you read the last sentence saying that we intend to continue utilizing Gilson Way?
it's good to have, just to show our intent.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to lock us in if it said change your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, 31 additional permits. Same issues before.
FDs, SWIP.
32 damage to town ways.
Yeah, that should specify a Massachusetts bondholder.
Yeah, where did this come from?
So there was a discussion about having a bond for damages to town ways, and that was mostly relevant to when there is that cut-in at Randall Road for Mapledale and Clubhouse. Cause there could be some damage done to the road there.
Yeah.
I asked the Department of Public Works, what a reasonable bond would be for any damages to the roads in that area. So this would include Randall Road in its entirety, Cross Street and Edson Street. So this is, if there are damages caused by construction vehicles or when they do tie in the new streets, it would cover that. This may be excessive, it may not be, I don't know, this was based on their recommendation. And the board can reduce it, they can increase it, but it would be I think some dialogue would be important between you and that.
So for me, until you can baseline what that road looks like, it's difficult to decide what the bond may look like. Right? So I don't know how you do that, to then assess any damages that may have occurred through the process of 8 to 10 years.
Later in the decision, it specifies that the applicant must document damage to any town roads in the vicinity.
Well, what does it look like before any damage occurs? Who's gonna do that?
Is this like I'm getting a rental car and I gotta take pictures?
Right.
I mean, it's not static, they're gonna be building, up the street.
He's not the only guy using the road in the first place, right?
So,
It's mainly at your entrance.
well, the entrance,
You have heavy
I
trucks.
presume we're gonna clean up, we're gonna, repave the entrance when we do everything else so that it's
Well,
nice and
we
fun.
could just say to cover any damages caused by your construction. I mean, if someone does something else.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that's specific.
How are you gonna adjudicate that? Somebody gonna be down there every day watching trucks coming and
I
going?
mean,
Well,
if a guy that's working for me takes out a wall.
That's a dispute later on. What's the difference between whether that would happen normally? I mean, if he doesn't put the bond up and then there's damage to the road, we can still sort of claim saying that it was him and he can say, yeah, it wasn't me, it was Bob down the street.
Valerie.
It's a really typical condition. So what we do is at a pre-construction meeting, staff will go out there and take photos of the driveway apron. And then at the end of the project, we have.
Okay, we just narrowed the scope dramatically. I mean, that's a scope conversation. You've got, 10 by 20, whatever it is, boom, it looks like this. Does it look like that when we're all done? Great. If it doesn't, let's fix it.
In fact, when you're
That's
putting
the
the road
scope.
in, I would just take care of that.
If that's the scope, I'm okay with it. It's just when it talks about any damage to any
Yeah, really.
townways, just because people are coming and going, that seemed, I don't.
I will say this looks like, this was about a tenfold, this is like 10 times as much as I was expecting.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, that's what
So-
jumped out at me too, because we're dealing with a pretty limited area. So how about we call it 25, and that cuts it in half, and that's still 5 times what
Sorry,
we
who recommended
expected.
the 50 again? I remember seeing the email.
Yeah,
Our DPW?
Stows, yes.
They're fixing the whole road needs to
I
be
think it's
fixed.
a different scope, right? The scope is
Yeah.
different.
How much, I mean,
And
with all
the
due
scope
respect, how
was
much
the
does a bond
entire
for
road, though,
$50,000 cost?
I end up having to put up to $50,000. That's easier than trying to deal with the bond, and it's a pain in the ass. That's the reality of it, that I write a check and it sits there for as long as it's gonna be, with no benefit to anybody.
I
How
will
much
say
will-
that's also typically when the roadway is going to be private, and it's a private roadway intersecting with a public roadway. So ostensibly, yeah, if we're having the third party reviewer out there to review the paving, the roads are intended to be accepted by the town. This standard might have, kind of shifted us after this last ZBA meeting when you're saying that you want the roads to be accepted.
How about just redoing 20 feet to either side of the intersection of the public way? That way, there's no problem.
I anticipate that will happen
Yeah.
as part of the fix to have a seamless entrance, so that's.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we change this to say from 50 to 25? And also indicate that it's to cover any damages caused by you, as opposed to right now, as written, just says cover any damages. Yeah, so, caused by you.
And I think
Town-owned roads within the immediate vicinity.
Well, I think we're talking about, I mean, if the concern is to ensure that Randall Road at the entrance is, I'm gonna say, cleaned up, and appropriate, that, I mean, you can just say that. Because then you won't approve the roadway if the work isn't done. So, that's all. Just, if we can just focus it on that area instead
Yeah,
of
I'm just trying to say.
anybody over the area, just say in the, in the vicinity of the property entrance.
Yeah, perfect.
Fine.
So is this gonna be a bond, or is this gonna be money that he's gonna put up?
Well, it's his choice, it's
Bond,
25K.
bond is loose, so if you wanna say bond or set aside or something,
Yeah,
so.
prior to such disturbance, a bond of $25,000 or the cash equivalent.
Yeah,
You know,
or escrow, whatever.
yeah,
My only,
or an equivalent escrow will be created.
my only point on, if it is bond, it should be a Massachusetts bondholder. So
Yeah,
it's
okay.
Somebody that we can, contact.
Good point.
Want to have a comment
Which one?
before we do this one?
Oh, so everything that we went through just
Oh.
now, we already reviewed.
Oh, that's right, oh, yeah, okay.
So everything,
I was really confused when you're like, we haven't, like, heard this stuff, wait, what are you talking about?
everything
That's right,
from
we
33 onward has not been discussed.
gotcha, okay. All right, 33, unit requirement. Any comments? All right, 34, building permits. Is that standard or 20% of that?
20% of the units are affordable in the building, so.
It's one big building instead of individual permits, so.
35, construction rate. 36, the micro unit proposal. Oh, sorry, did I move too quickly?
Okay, that's 36. The discussion about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down. If the micro unit housing is constructed and does not become feasible in its operation, the town has a right of first refusal to purchase the property, including the lot, all the improvements of each MUB. If the town does not exercise the right of first refusal, the property, including the lot improvements, may be sold at market rate value. Why not require it to be an affordable unit? That's what it started out as.
I put that in there because it may require extensive renovation to convert it to a single family house. Because it's not designed as a single family house as this type of housing. So we can say it must then be affordable, but what would that mean if it's not a traditional apartment, it's not a traditional single family house? How would the town want to address that?
You know, any suggestions? Keep it affordable? In a way, it's your problem.
I look at it from the perspective that, you know, the town should get 31 affordable units here. And so if these 2 units converted to market, you lose 2 affordable.
That's right.
You know, I think if it's, you know, from a practical sense, you know, if they're not being utilized as intended, you know, you can put the burden on the owner to make sure that it's reasonable and appropriate to be sold to an affordable buyer. The other thing that could happen is that, you know, you have a home that really has 3 or 4 bedrooms and maybe some extra stuff that
It can still be used.
it can still be used. It might, you know, they might want to reconfigure it later, but it's certainly gonna have, you know, as much or more space as another unit. And the financial burden at that point is the micro unit people, but, you know, they're the ones that didn't fill it. They're the ones that are saying they don't need it anymore. So at that point, if there's a financial hit, I think it should be them, personally. So I tend to agree. I think it should be affordable.
The hit should be on them, who's that?
The micro unit developers.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it, yeah.
Right.
So, cause I don't think that the town should end up without the number that they were intended to use. That goes back to the earlier conversation. So if there's gonna be a burden for retrofitting, I think it goes on them. And you say it's affordable,
I think we should maintain it as affordable.
unless the town wants to.
However they do it, that's the problem.
That's how.
They have to sell it. It's gonna be
That's how I
theirs.
tend to feel about it, yeah, they need to sell it, they sell it as affordable. And I think it probably would be a wonderful opportunity for someone to buy as an affordable home, personally.
A large family.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably a 4-bedroom home, which,
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I think that is,
Yeah, so maybe, so it should be changed, to say if the town does not exercise its first right of refusal. Well, actually, we need to change that. The town is the right, yeah, if the town does not exercise its first right of refusal, we need a time period. If the town doesn't answer, like, then it's stuck, so it's gotta be within, I don't know,
typical deed riders are 120 days.
perfect, okay, within 120 days of notice.
That's an impossible situation unless the smart has money to,
Well, that's the way it always,
Yeah.
that's the standard in the
yeah.
deed rider.
I mean, 120 days is a real problem for the towns, which,
Well, it's different than chapter 61. Right, I mean, right of first refusal doesn't need to go through, this right of first refusal doesn't need to go to town meeting. This is just, you know, this happens as units come up for sale with existing affordable properties. So we get notified from the state, a couple times a year for right of first refusal, and we're in touch with SMOT, and
If they wanna buy the
If they
unit,
wanna buy
let
it.
them do it.
yeah, we typically tell the state, you know, we'll pass for now, but let us know if the marketing process doesn't work out, and we'll have a second go at it. Marketing typically works out, so.
Okay, well, it seems like we could get it.
What do you think?
The
is
micro
reasonable?
unit's gonna own it.
What do you think is reasonable?
I think it's reasonable that the micro unit owns it, so if they want to get rid of it, then they sell it as an affordable unit, if they have to
No, we're
retrofit it.
talking about the timeframe the
So,
town
yeah,
has.
no, 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 fine, I think everyone's in
Okay.
agreement on
Okay.
that.
So why
You
should
like
the town
us-
have to,
You didn't like 120 days, what would you like?
if she says that's workable, it's fine, but in the past it
I
hasn't
think
been.
it's, yeah, I think it's even less. I feel like in recent
I think
months, it's been like 60 days.
I don't know, I think it's 100, maybe it's
That's a-
120 on the marketing days.
That's a quarter.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's 120 days,
Yeah.
and I think 120 days is enough to say, you're really saying to the town, this is something that you wanna require. If
Right.
you wanna do it, then you can negotiate, then you do an agreement, and you might have some more
I mean, I
time
was-
out of it.
Okay,
I would say third, because I also don't, like, because usually in a more private scenario, you say, we need to know quickly. And you're not saying, here's the money, it's just simply saying, I'm exercising my right, I'll let you, So, but if 120 works, then we'll just do 120. So it should read, if the town does not exercise its right of first refusal within 120 days of receiving notice, the property, including the lot improvements, will be sold, no, it may be sold, provided it is at affordable.
I don't even know if you need to put the days in here because I think it's really all just the state's process.
Do they have a time?
Yeah,
What do you mean the state's process?
like,
We're-
I think that if you put in a day in here, it could conflict with what the state's process is.
So then why don't we say?
But the state
according to
doesn't, I guess I don't understand where the state's coming, is like, this unit's gonna be owned by, what, ARC?
it's gonna be owned by our,
Or some subsidiary or.
Yeah, ARC or some other third party is gonna own the unit.
Yeah.
They're gonna contact the town going, we can't make this work, do you wanna buy it?
But then we would go,
that's between us and
there's
our.
a subsidizing agency that's involved. So it's the subsidizing agency that would be,
But why would the subsidizing agency be involved, as like,
I mean, so in the paragraph above, it's stating.
Well, I guess the question is, does the state, get involved and say, this has to be done within whatever number of days? Is there some actual
If
number?
the state is the subsidizing agency.
Yeah, it is.
So when they get in contact with us, they typically say, you have, I forget if it's 30 or 60 days to respond. I typically try to get back to them within a week.
but it's not that, I guess, I'm sorry if I'm really, if I'm just, it's my personal confusion. The state doesn't own the building. The state's not, and
It's
But it's an
whichever
affordable
entity
unit.
is handling the lottery process.
because,
They have-
but by this point, it's no longer like an affordable unit, like ARC said, we can't make this work.
It's still affordable. It's still affordable.
Because
at
it's
that
still
point.
affordable at the time.
And the thing is,
ARC basically has an affordable building, they can't put anyone in there, they want to
That's
get rid of it.
There's
Yeah.
no-
I got it,
yeah.
okay.
And the town doesn't have to get involved at all.
No,
So you're saying that the state may,
the subsidizing agency. I
sorry,
should correct
the
myself,
subsidizing
sorry, yeah.
agency. Okay, well, we can put a time, but if there's uncertainty, I think the easiest way to go forward is to simply say, that we have to respond within 120 days unless otherwise required by the subsidizing agency.
Yeah, right.
We'll do it that way. Okay. I'm sorry to be picky, and then anyway, and if not, then it's gotta get resold as an affordable unit. Not at market value. The micro unit, the first sentence, the micro unit housing is constructed and does not become feasible in its operation.
Yes, the model fails.
yeah, but
It is-
it
it
is
is not viable.
It's not feasible.
Can we just, I guess I find the wording a little awkward.
And it becomes,
Well, why is it our problem?
It's not viable. It
it's
may be a
not,
better
it's
word.
not viable.
Viable might be a better word, or financially viable.
According to who?
Well, the person who's deciding that.
They're the ones that are gonna say, we can't do this, it's not
Right.
sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's not.
He's gotta work that out with the state.
No,
No,
I
no,
know,
just-
I'm just saying, I don't like the way it's phrased, like,
Right.
someone's operations are sort of
It's a
odd.
double.
Say, and is not, and is not economically feasible in its operation, how about that?
As determined by the owner,
Sure.
right?
Or it's not sustainable,
Sustainable, feasible,
whatever.
Yeah,
Or if it's constructed and ceases in operation, or
Well, somehow they
that's in
gotta,
the future too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can't start, or they go belly up.
Yeah.
Okay. As determined by whoever owns the unit at the time.
correct.
so then can we change the word if the to be once the? Because if it's an if, then, oh, this is all predicate anyway.
I'm sorry, which if?
Well, I'm just saying if we're
Well,
gonna,
you're not presuming it's gonna fail.
No.
If you say once it happens, then you're presuming it's failing, right?
Well, there's once
well,
it's built.
but you have to build it before you can have any of this other stuff apply, right?
There's an and, so if it's constructed.
So
and-
if you do it, fine, but if you didn't do it,
Well, I'm not sure why the town's getting involved at all. We
Because
have
it's-
failures of affordable units, can't sell them or some can't rent them or whatever, and the state gets involved in how you just
Because
take
we want
care of
to,
that.
because we want to buy it.
It's
Why do we
because
wanna
of the
buy it?
affordability component, so
you wanna
because.
maintain
It
it.
has to maintain affordability anyway.
Their problem.
So,
I
I mean,
agree.
it's, why not, it's
So
their problem.
so take it out, then strike the whole paragraph.
Yeah,
Well, I think we just wanna make sure the thing we wanna make sure is that it remains affordable.
if there's a deed restriction on it, there will
Yeah, it's
definitely
gonna
be
be, right.
affordable.
Is
Oh,
this
so
right of
it's-
first refusal unique to the micro units, or is it true of anything else?
It's true of all the affordable units.
So that the language needs to be consistent across the affordable units, that the town has a right of first refusal?
Or is it, that's a
No,
natural
no,
right though, right?
Yeah.
It's built into the affordability law.
So I think we just need to take a step back and recognize that this has not been done anywhere in Massachusetts, let alone through 40E.
Okay,
So
so
there's going to be uncertainties
Why don't
with
we-
it.
But that doesn't matter.
if the right of first refusal is the same for all the units, is the easier way of handling it is to simply say, like, if this doesn't work out, like the same process, rather than spelling out the process, trying to spell it right, why can't you say the same process applies?
Say, or you could say that a deed restriction will be incorporated into the approval. That way, though those terms can be ironed out with the deal. A deed restriction will be incorporated in the approval, generally consistent with affordable housing restrictions. That way, you're saying there's gonna be a deed restriction to ensure what happens if it ceases to operate, and the disposition of the house, because all of these items are built, everything that we're talking about
Built into
is in the deed rider for a traditional affordable unit. So why don't you just make reference to
I
a
like
deed
that.
restriction?
I think that's elegant, because it just, it goes to David's desire to just simplify the language.
Yeah.
And that way, it is a different animal, as Michael's saying, so that provides reasonable parties to talk about that deed restriction as it approaches, and the town will be involved in it. So
And I'm sure the state will have some input as what the deed restriction is gonna have to have in it.
Yeah.
It'll be a little different, but not.
I mean, yeah, the key thing here is that the deed restriction with all the affordable units is always gonna be there. The difference though here is that it's that added component of like, well, is this working or not? Right, essentially?
No,
It
doesn't
really
matter.
isn't, it
Doesn't
really
matter.
just
The
comes to the
restriction is
economic
the
viability,
restriction.
because if somebody goes into foreclosure because they haven't paid their mortgage, it's the same thing.
Right.
And that's when the deed restriction kicks in.
Well,
If they lose, otherwise people just choose, this doesn't work for me anymore, I'm going to sell it, and the process of which they sell it is outlined.
except,
That's actually pretty
except
simple.
that's not what this says. This simply says it's not working. They could sit on it. I'm not saying.
Oh, they could sell
They
it.
could keep it.
I mean, I guess.
They gotta pay taxes, they gotta pay
That's
everything
right.
that goes along with it, so.
I'm not saying it's maybe, I mean, I don't know what, you know,
So they can't sustain the operation, So they can, okay, keep the title, but so what? It's gonna either atrophy because they can't pay their bills and then somebody's gonna take it over anyway.
True, I guess the question
And
is
it's
whether
gotta
the
be
town wants to kickstart the process and say, we don't want you to sit on it, like, we don't wanna have these two abandoned houses
Correct.
sitting there.
And the HOA
say
probably
that,
got some
but-
note to
But
put
that's
on
the
there.
same for anybody that owns property anywhere in the.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Any
this is
afford-
unique, I guess the point is that like, if you're a private citizen, and you wanna do that, that's fine, but we're giving, you know,
So the HOA has an oar in the water here too. They certainly
There'll
don't
be
want these
comments,
things.
there'll be comments
Right.
about, unutilized property, all that, I mean, I think, to me, I think that the key comment that really needed to be discussed was the market versus the affordable.
Yeah.
I think that at the end of the day, the town should be getting at least the benefit of 2 affordable units there. So if something happens, I think just make reference that there'll be a deed rider to ensure long-term affordability,
Right.
period.
That's right.
That's all you need to do,
And if they have to dissolve it, they dissolve it like any other affordable unit.
things happen.
alright, 37, as-built plans. Concerns, comments? Same comments before the first stuff. See, submit to the board. Alright, 38, post-construction meeting.
Is there
I don't know
another-
what it's for.
We'll just cut them.
Well, that's when you bring in champagne, isn't it?
Alright, 39, for sale, single-use units and modifications. Sorry, for sale, single-family units modifications.
I had been speaking with Michael this morning. Originally, it was 25%, which was a pretty sizable adjustment. Which I think I stated, that was a lot. But 10%, I think, was a little low. I was suggesting we do 15%. The other ones, there's reference to the percentages in the other buildings, and I don't, for the rentals, I don't care about it. This is more for
Remind me of the
people's
square
flexibility.
footage? Is this square footage?
Well, I mean, you're looking at the footprint.
Right.
That's the difference. So if you've got about, a 2,000 square foot house with 1,000 feet, you got 100 feet, which isn't, it's not really a room. If someone wants to add something off the back, so 15% would be, a 10 by 15 room theoretically. You still have the same offsets. I'm not asking for any changes there. So that's all. The other ones I don't care about because the rentals are the rentals, so those aren't gonna be changed anyways. So it's just providing people with a little flexibility should they wanna make changes in the future, which we've talked about. I don't think you have this in a conventional neighborhood,
Well,
No, the lots are obviously,
it's bigger and the setbacks.
Exactly.
but the setbacks are established,
Yeah.
so,
15% would be fine with me. And just 25% is very large.
it was generous, yeah.
You're not gonna see it in the first 5 to 7 years of the house.
That's
anyway.
right. And we won't be around, so.
what other thing? 10 versus 15.
15's fine.
15's fine.
It's not that big a number you're dealing with. I mean, if you own 10% on 1,000 square feet, it's not a big addition. What do
I
you-
know, but these houses are, practically on the line as it is. But 15 is fine, I'm just noting that, I think a normal house on a normal lot, so the difference between 10 and 15 would be, probably nothing, because they're so far from the lot lines to begin with. Here, I actually think it does make a difference.
But you're probably gonna hit that regardless, whether it's 10 or 15%.
Well, that's probably true.
Right?
It's not forbidding it if it's more than 15. or
No,
more
I
than
understand, they just have to come, and right, I get that, yeah. All right, any definitions, okay, 40, cottage and age restricted apartment modifications.
The other thing, just to make sure that everybody understands it, what Congress asked for is that, we've waived the local bylaw, that the bylaws back in the saddle, which I'm okay with,
Yeah.
so. It just, we hadn't really talked about it before, so,
No, yeah,
but I think that's reasonable and appropriate,
that's
so.
the key, exactly, yeah.
And the net floor area on that, I'm fine at 10%, those are,
Can I just ask,
and rentals are not gonna be changed,
I
so.
was gonna say, how do you increase the net floor? I mean, what are you knocking down the wall of one unit and pushing it into the other?
No, I think what was being consistent with how to deal with things in the future, there's multiple structures, if somebody
Okay,
wanted to add a closet, I don't know, whatever it would be, yeah, so.
anything else from 40? No, all right, 41, 42, 43. Design names and materials.
42 is the names of, all street lanes, planning are approved as proposed, amendments to the names of any streets, lanes, drives, or must be approved by the board. We don't really care, it's really the fire department, and the police department that's worried about the street names.
The bylaw.
It's
no
more
bylaw.
public
No.
safety, just to make sure that the
Yeah.
streets don't sound the same as others.
Okay,
So
yeah.
would you like, must be approved by the police and fire department?
Yes.
Would you want it by the department or the fire chief and the police chief?
Chiefs,
Chiefs, okay.
it's a small thing. Are approved as proposed. Do we want to say except pile lines, fill lane?
That is only the title block, not,
Oh,
it's actually written.
Never mind, okay.
So it's,
I'm telling you right now, I want it to be pile lane.
I know
50
you-
years from
yeah,
now, someone
you're
goes,
gonna drive through this in a few years and say, where the hell's
Right.
Pile?
yeah, exactly. Because I want there to be a story. It's like, I don't know how it was pile lane because it was a typo.
You ever wonder why?
44, subsurface utilities. Okay. 45, signage.
one note before I forget.
Yep.
Talking about the wayfinding signs and the other condition about signage in the plans.
Yep.
It says shall not, or must not exceed 8 square feet.
Yep.
Or this one says 8 square feet and the other one says 6 square feet. I put 8 square feet in this one to be a little bit more generous, just if it happens to be a little bit bigger. I think they are a little over 7 square feet.
Well, don't want to be consistent.
So
Or maybe I'm missing something. Why?
which, does the board have a preference for the maximum size of a wayfinding sign? 6 or 8?
No, I don't care.
Just because I noticed I did that error.
So in practice,
Go with
what's,
the larger.
what's
Just
the
put a note down,
practice?
pile has been.
Yeah.
It's
It's 8 for everything except Pile, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else with signage? 46, street trees.
All good.
Anything? No, alright. 47, 48, 49, street illumination monument, is that a word? Monumentation?
Yes,
Really? God, I'm learning so much.
it's putting in the survey markers.
Okay.
Street lights. Do you plan to open any street lights?
Yes.
There will be some lighting, I wouldn't necessarily call it street lighting, but, illuminating the park areas, illuminating some pathways.
Okay.
But
But I mean, like intersections, things like that, you're not gonna be.
there's gonna be enough ambient light, I think, from the other things that, like, we're not gonna have a specific one there.
Okay.
At intersections, in the front intersection, you've got the green space, there's gonna be lighting there. You get the septic system at the other end, there'll be some lighting around there. The walkway that goes through, people will have, post lights at, driveway lights, so I don't anticipate a street light per se.
Okay.
But there will be lighting on the property.
And theoretically, eventually the umbrella trust could determine we need a street light and they could put it
Well-
themselves.
Theoretically,
Yeah.
they could, but it would need to be in compliance with the
Right.
bylaw, so.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not asking for any waivers, so.
Right, any other questions, comments about 47, 48, 49?
Nope.
All right, 50, stormwater management. There was a comment from Kathy, do we want annual reports, and you said compliance. What does that mean about compliance?
With the
How do
overall
you
plan.
know it's happening?
But we don't know what's happening, all the other stormwater basins in town. They never get
Just
maintained.
raising the question.
I know, but the town does not maintain them.
Well, so it raises the question, though, if the town is taking the roads, are we also taking the stormwater?
I would think so.
Well, there's all that subterranean stuff that's gonna be contended with, right? So what would that,
Well,
what would that look like? How would again, what's the baseline? How do you monitor that?
Well, it's the highway department.
The wastewater, we're talking the
Stormwater.
stormwater management.
So just as a for instance,
Yeah.
the Arbor Glen permit decision apparently requires them to provide reports of catch basin cleaning quarterly. And we actually get them.
I wouldn't mind the cleaning.
Okay, cleaning,
Yeah,
But the highway department does that anyway.
but that would be, yeah, now that it would be town roads.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll need to review this just with that in mind, because there will be a whole other process for town street acceptance and provision of those plans as well, and again, like the easements or yeah, because I need easements over those.
so if you wanna peel this onion a little bit, ask the question about the public water supply and the pipe breaks. Who's gonna fix that?
That's
Homeowners.
not us, yeah, that'd be the homeowner.
The town doesn't have the water.
We don't-
The
won't take
homeowner is
it.
gonna be responsible for an infrastructure failure?
Yes.
Yes.
The homeowner's trust would be,
Yeah.
Okay,
like if the septic system fails, that's the homeowner's trust, the pipe that goes to it is, it's all related, so.
Yeah, when the town takes the roads, it's really just the roads and the stormwater management.
And like I say, we don't maintain what's there, so I've never seen anybody out maintaining any of them.
For the,
Stormwater, the catch basins and everything. They clean out the traps and things, they do that. But as far as keeping the shrubs and everything from growing up in the basins, they don't.
So how would it work, not to really complicate things, how would it work if the town only took some of the roads?
we would just need to add language in here that specifies that.
Do we then say, does the stormwater management system maintenance plan differ when we apply if this town doesn't take the roads?
I need to look at the plan to see how much of that is stormwater from roofs.
That goes into the ground, right?
That's
The
impervious,
size, right?
No,
I
all-
haven't
Each house
looked at
has its
it
own.
well, Sorry.
Yeah, no, all of the home, every
Yeah.
lot has a small infiltration.
Just from the roads.
Yeah.
So then,
So it's primarily just the roadway is what is into the system.
Yeah.
And there is some subsurface for that, in several locations. And then, a couple of basins in the center.
Kind of localized. Each area has a certain basin to go to and.
Well, each home has its own.
Oh, I know that,
filtration.
yes.
It varies. A lot of the water is it's going where it's normally going now. 80% of it is going towards the pond that's there. Some of it's being infiltrated, some of it's being treated and released, other is going into.
Everything off the road has to be going through some type of
Yeah,
treatment
it's
before
being
it's
treated,
over.
it's being treated, yeah.
So-
Yeah,
So, I mean, do we want to put a provision in there that requires annual reporting if and only if the roads remain private?
Yes.
Not annual, quarterly isn't.
they have.
Annual.
Annual is fine. Quarterly, then every spring they can do.
All right, why don't we do a stormwater management report on an annual basis, for as long as the roads remain private? For as long as some of the, as long as any of the roads remain private, for that way.
Just for my, what would that require? Be to have, for information, I mean, what are we looking for, right?
So, Kat,
they actually conducted the maintenance and cleared the storm.
Clean out all the catch
Check the
basins.
basics, their operation, the functional.
So it's just, it's a
And make sure
maintenance
nothing
report
plugged up.
versus they're not testing to see if
No.
it's rained properly or anything like that.
it's not a water test.
They'll know that when.
They're
it
not a
rains.
water test, but more of a flow.
I think they're just being evaluated for effectiveness and
Okay.
cleaned as
So
opposed to.
yeah.
they would know that that's the way it's.
Gotta make sure it's
treated,
operating.
right?
All right, so we'll do an annual report
Know that.
for as long as any of the roads remain private.
And probably the wastewater management handbook tells you how you have to do it anyway, what you have to do.
Yeah, there's an operation and maintenance, like I said, I think it's in the plan,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that we understood
Yeah,
what we
sure.
were asking for, so.
I mean, we can add in a sentence as to what it should, just to describe it if you want.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I think, yeah, I think the planning board.
They're gonna review and approve the operation
Oh.
and maintenance.
Oh, and yeah, we should say that the report, who the report should be submitted to. Planning department?
Take
Sure, good. Okay, if planning doesn't like it,
We
they,
don't need-
and if planning doesn't like it, they can kick it back.
Kathy just brought up a point that I don't know that this exists elsewhere in town. I'm sure there's a way to handle it. But if there is the piping for the public water system underneath the road and the town owns the road, would I guess the HOA would just get a road opening permit through the DPW, post a bond.
Patch it, do it,
Patch it.
deal with it as in a normal practice, yeah.
Circuit Drive, don't they have?
I was trying to think where there was another example of private.
So Circuit Drive has that, so the whole Juniper Hill development has that condition.
Okay, so it is in town.
Yeah, I think that's a regular,
Property
yeah.
owners do.
Let's not bring that
How
up.
many acres, that's a separate conversation.
Yeah,
No, but they did have private water.
They did, yeah, right.
They chose not to open the road, just
Right.
put their own wells in.
But you have the same conversation if there's gas there, or if there's other stuff.
Well, gas and the utility company has to take a look
Right.
at that.
It's the same, just, yeah.
Yeah,
Same
same
treatment,
thing.
Right.
things happen, things need to be maintained,
Right.
yeah.
All right, section 51, parking. Any comments, issues?
Nope.
52, emergency access easements. All right, open space. Now those things I yelled at before, we can talk about. All right, 53, trail construction. Sorry. Do we want to change the perimeter walking trail as shown on the project plans may be constructed utilizing, should we say will be constructed? Utilizing existing cart paths or by gravel? May implies that they don't even have to build it to begin with.
It's gonna be a combination.
No, I know, I'm just saying it.
Well, now we get into this whole verbal thing
Yeah,
about what's may and what's will.
Whatever you want, I'm fine.
So,
Yeah. And, you know, will sounds like may anyway.
Will implies intent to do it, where may gives the option.
Right, so we will be constructed utilizing existing cart paths. Or by gravel. All right, okay, so the issue we were talking about before was the last sentence, right?
Right.
The umbrella trust must maintain all trails in perpetuity.
So,
My suggestion right now, why don't we take it out of there, and then you've got trail construction, trail access. Let's have a section that says trail maintenance and just deal with it in one section.
All right, so we'll delete the sentence. Excuse me. All right, this is not 54 trail access.
I think we're taking out the deed rider and replacing with the easement.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, anything else on the trail access? Okay, trail connections, 55.
and then you wanna pull out the maintenance sentence.
I think we, upon mutual agreement, additional connections can be made, period. And then, then I think we have a section that says trail maintenance.
Sorry, on the first sentence, additional trail connections between the site and town-owned land to the west may be constructed. Kathy, do you want it limited just to the west, or it should just be to town-owned land, period?
To the, yeah,
Well, there isn't any other,
Right.
I
Okay.
suppose there could be some,
Okay,
that way people you can just say to town owned, I think you can say
Okay,
to
town-owned
town-owned
land,
land,
period.
because, yeah.
yeah, okay. All right, and then, we'll do I guess a new 56, whatever, 55A. Just called trail maintenance.
and I think you could kind of pick up the language from 55, this would be my suggestion unless Mark thinks otherwise, and just say trails on the site must be maintained by the community umbrella trust unless otherwise agreed in writing by the town and the trust.
So
And that leaves, instead of saying in perpetuity, it leaves the option open
For
for
the town to
that
take it
to
over.
evolve if.
okay,
Right.
I like that, Kathy. I think that makes sense.
And I think just some reference that, cause we talked before, there's gonna be an easement. There's gonna be a trail plan and a trail easement. So why don't we say that, it will be maintained by the community development trust unless agreed. And, will be further specified in the easement agreement or something like that. I don't think that we need to go through it and I don't wanna say argue about it because that's not what I mean. But I think that the expectations should be spelled out in the easement.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
think that can
That would be the
worked
normal way to handle it too.
like the standards for the maintenance?
Yeah, like
Okay.
what is expected, and I
Right,
think
no
we can,
plowing
yeah,
or-
I think we can work that out in that agreement, and
Yeah.
that this board doesn't really need to be
Yep.
involved with it.
That makes a lot of
That's-
sense.
I'm fine with that.
Oh,
So what about the point that Bernie was raising earlier about any liability provisions?
I think that gets built into it, there is law about public access stuff.
Yeah,
that
recreational
there's
use statute
protection.
covers that.
Yeah.
So,
So you're talking about like someone slips and falls on the trail and there's
Yeah.
ice there.
It's allowed for public, there is umbrella, there is protections for the property owner.
Yeah.
And I think that can be spelled out in the easement agreement as well.
Yeah, okay.
As long as the trail is maintained safely and you're not putting something, impediment or something.
Well, that's
You're
not-
not-
the threshold is
That's
basically
all
if you're not paying, if you're not charging access. So that's the way, that's the way recreational use statutes work, so.
So I think that we're protected that way, but it can be spelled out in that agreement to be safe.
Okay,
Like I said, I just wanna make sure that the expectations on both sides is appropriate.
yeah, clearly.
That we can do that without wasting your time.
56, recreation.
I think the main reason that this is here was because, we had shown the community gardens and then everybody said, we don't like them, but they said, let's make sure that we make allowances for them in the future. And then it just expands upon it, talks about, zone 1, I think it's okay.
I don't
What
think,
is
we don't
passive-
need to approve anything.
What is passive recreation?
Picnic.
Meaning within the zone 1, you can have a trail that walks through it. But you couldn't have an ATV park,
Right.
so.
The joking distinction between passive and active is that you don't break a sweat engaging. Which isn't entirely true, but not ball fields, not, tennis courts, things that would require structures.
What about pickleball? That looks
Not
pretty
Yeah,
passive.
no,
It's
no.
not passive.
Well, it's not passive.
Not passive at all.
Passive
Very
at all. And it
controversial.
wasn't less passive too.
The statement that provisions for passive recreation must be approved by the board. We don't need to approve anything.
I wanted to ask the board about that. I just had a concern that the umbrella trust could wanna purchase a very large and expensive thing and they could raise the cost up of the fees impacting.
That's the
That's still
homeowner
not, I don't
association.
think
Yeah,
that's.
And I
what it
just, I put it in here just an additional safeguard to make sure that it does get checked. But if we don't need it, then we'll strike it.
Yeah, I don't think that,
If they wanna build a hockey rink, we can talk about it, but
Yeah, my suggestion for what it's worth was that if they were gonna build any kind of a structure,
Hmm.
the board would need to approve
but
it.
they have to do
That's-
that anyway.
They have to do that anyway.
I'd have to get permits for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay striking that next to last sentence. All right. Anything else about trails and recreation before we move on? Wetland permitting, wetlands review 57. You good? Okay, 58, planting in the wetland areas, wetlands resources areas. Resource areas, excuse me. Is it planting in wetland resource areas? Wetlands supposed to be plural.
Wetlands.
So wetlands.
It's wetland is singular there.
It is?
Yeah, wetland resource area.
Wetland
okay.
research area, I think the S is the least. Okay, 59, wetland permitting post occupancy. Where's the bylaw for purposes of development, why would post permits in it?
I was puzzled by that.
Can that even happen?
Because Mark, you've asked for the bylaw to be waived, right?
Correct.
So this would say that then if a homeowner wants to make a change later, they would be subject to the bylaw.
Yeah, so
So,
we build the project and somebody later wants to come back and work in their backyard, then now they're subject to the full bylaw that any resident would have.
I think isn't it we're waiving it for the whole development period
yeah,
forever?
so my concern
you
is
guys.
we've now allowed houses in the 35-foot buffer, which wouldn't typically be allowed in the bylaw. And somebody wants to do work on their house. We're kind of stuck having to approve.
They would have to come back here for approval if they're gonna do something, a house that goes into the seams.
Well, they could do a 10% expansion.
Yeah, they wouldn't necessarily come back to ZBA. Does that just make the permitting difficult?
Yeah,
How many do we have within the 35?
a few.
That's got a back line there.
More backyards.
It's a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this front, the front left is there for the most part.
I think we're waiving it for the whole development period,
For the whole development and into the future.
and in the future.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
That's why I assume. It's a
Not
development
that I
that we're
wanna give up
approving, not,
jurisdiction, but
not, yeah, we don't necessarily agree with what's required, but that's what the state says, so.
I'm out, so
You're sold and gone.
I'm less concerned,
First
but,
request comes in, I'm outta here.
yeah, I know, I mean, I was ambivalent, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, from a practical sense, you know, within the 100, you know, the main distinction is process related and the 35-foot no touch.
Right.
Beyond that, they're working within the 100 feet, they gotta go to conservation anyway, so. It's really just within that, you know, that 35 feet, and I guess in fairness to residents, if their entire backyard is within the 35 feet, they should have some limited ability to work within it.
They should be notified, told that there is a bylaw that we would like you to respect it if you can.
Is there a middle ground?
So we're saying that the project itself, so where it is reflected in those other sections would be removed as well. For the subsequent changes, you made comments in there that it's subject to the local bylaw, didn't you?
Yes,
Yes, so 59 reads that once they get that occupancy, they no longer have the waiver.
Right.
And
I
is
thought you
that,
were just saying the opposite, are you saying that there's no reason that should be taken out?
do we wanna,
what waiver are we talking about? The original setbacks that are,
I'm talking about the applicability of the local wetland protection
Bylaw.
bylaw.
And does the waiver
So-
end when the project is built, or is it
No,
there?
It doesn't end.
no,
Okay, then that's the conversation that we're having.
So
There was sections added, modifications in this go around, change that.
Why shouldn't it then?
why should it?
Why should, I'm sorry,
We're waiving the requirement, period,
For the entire development,
development.
period.
so basically if someone wants to,
They wanna make an addition to the house, now we can say, oh, you don't meet the setbacks.
right,
Right,
You're not 25 feet from the side yard, you packed your whole house, you got a problem.
Well, no, we have, I mean, the setbacks are,
I know,
when we were talking about the section, you know, before, even,
It's-
you know, the aspect of a percentage stuff.
it's just,
I don't necessarily know why we need it, because we have setbacks. If I wanted to build out to the end of the setbacks and nobody had a yard at all, technically I could do it, but you're saying that they can't do it. So I don't know why we needed those things in there to begin with, because we established zoning. And being consistent with that, we establish the waivers are there for the wetlands, and they should exist as well, so.
Yeah, to me, the parallel is you've waived the zoning bylaw on the setback issues, so it would be saying like, after the project is built, you have to comply with zoning.
Right.
You can't.
No, no,
Yeah.
What, we're waiving the whole thing for this
We've
development,
established,
and it's like a
we've
variance.
established the guidelines for building here, which is the revised zoning.
Like we
And-
grant a variance, it's forever, we don't,
Right.
it applies to that piece of land.
The idea, with the caveat that with the, what are we now at 15%? It expands.
Well, I mean,
That's-
well,
I,
actually, probably go away.
like I said, I
Well-
had mentioned it earlier, I don't know
That's
why we need that if we've
Right,
already
because you already
established
got
what we can
constraints
do on
based
the
on.
lot.
That's true.
You know,
Well,
I mean-
except, I don't know, if you remove all the constraints, it basically means that someone could buy the house and say, okay, I want to expand this house to the very edge of my property in all 4 directions.
Can't do it.
Because-
He needs a variance to do that.
But you've just waived all of.
no, we have
We have it,
offsets.
we have
We
offsets,
offsets
we
that
have
are
setbacks.
You establish
That's
new
setbacks.
setback requirements, right?
Yeah.
So we
for that
have the
property.
setbacks that is established as part of this subdivision.
Yeah.
Why we had these other percentages, I guess we'd go back and think about that, probably don't need it. But if I wanna go beyond that setback, I'm gonna come here.
Yeah.
But we've also waived it for that particular siding of that house. And if he's gonna expand
Right,
to more than a certain point, they should come back here and say, do we think that's reasonable?
okay.
So maybe the percentage do apply.
Well, no, you're saying 2 separate things. The comment, I believe that you're saying is, look, if I own a house in a subdivision now, and my side offset is 20 feet, and I'm gonna build within that 20, I'm not going to infringe upon that 20 feet, I don't come and talk to you, I file a building permit.
Right.
The building inspector looks at it, if he says it's in compliance, you go forth and prosper.
Right.
I don't think it should be different here.
Right.
And that's why I was questioning the, percentages of, and we can say, oh, it's generous, it's this, it's that, but from a practical sense, we've established what you can and can't do on the site.
Right.
Why are we changing it once the original build is
We don't
done?
need that variable.
Because we have the offsets, and they would go into the building inspector and say, I wanna add this room. He's gonna look at it and say, okay, this is your required offset, and
You're in the balance.
you meet it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know, because, we're talking about setback, we're talking about 35 feet, right?
No, we're talking, we're not even talking about wetlands right now,
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking in general.
Just forget about
general.
it, it's a setback,
Wetlands
it's a
is a
setback.
subset of it, yeah.
All right.
The proposal is to delete basically sections 59 and 60.
So, I mean, there are certain things that we do require when somebody wants to, build, like, for example, height requirement, not just the increase of the percentage, but height
Agreed, and
requirements.
we have a maximum height that's established here,
35
and if they're not going above that, then
Right.
that isn't, wouldn't
Okay.
be reviewed.
And the setbacks are
35 and
established.
40 feet, right? But what about like in terms of, plot lines, going like how far?
They're all established.
They're all established. So that's, so I don't think that we need it, we've established the bylaw for the property. So the building inspector will implement that as he does
Agree.
in any other property in town.
I agree.
David? So rather than deleting them in their entirety, I think it actually would be helpful to say, as one condition, which I think can replace both, post occupancy, any, alterations, yada, 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 must comply with the must comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, but not the Town of Stow Wetlands bylaw. So that it's clear that this discussion was had and the decision was made.
Say that part again.
So that post-construction or
Right.
post-occupancy, any alteration has to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, which it does.
Yeah.
But not with the Town of Stow Wetlands bylaw, which has been waived.
Essentially, because we can only waive the bylaw, not the state law.
Right, so that.
But to
then-
clarify what we're
Yeah.
saying, I
Then
think
when
that's
they come
beneficial.
in.
So there's
you
no
know,
confusion in 10 years if
Exactly.
it's somebody else.
Nobody remembers.
That's fine.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
And the Wetlands Protection Act can change and they'd be subject to it just like anything else. That's not static. Yeah.
Right.
So in that same vein, the sections that we were talking about earlier with the percentages, we
Those
don't
should
really
be,
even
should be
need,
excised.
Well,
do we?
Because
It's the same
I say,
argument, right?
I would advocate that they be excised because we have the ability to constrain within the setbacks. And that was just an added feature that would just,
That's a question.
so this would be basically say that, just trying to think of the hypothetical. So I want to build, and I'm going to increase my footprint by 15%, but not be within 5 feet of the lot line. Because there's a 5-foot setback.
Right.
So that, we've got that staying. So the question is, do we still want to say, well, if you're not within 5 feet, you're within 7 feet or 8 feet, but you still expanded by more than 15%, you still gotta come to us.
why,
That's what I'm saying.
why?
We're saying, why,
I'm trying to like,
I'm trying to-
I'm trying to think of a situation like, why would we want to,
Let the HOA take care of it.
Yeah.
The intent that I had for doing that percentage of expansion is to maintain some smaller houses
Yeah.
in Stow. This, if we do not have that percentage in there, it would allow someone to raise the house and build within 5 feet of all the
It'll be
property
like
lines.
boom.
So that
Yeah,
was
the mansion,
my,
exactly.
that was my
Well,
concern.
in that case, why not just get rid of the percentage, I mean, if we wanna do that, if there's a concern of that, then you get rid of you have one or the other. You either say it's X%, or you get rid of the percent and you change the setback, or whatever, I mean, it's more the question of why both, rather than just one.
Well, the setbacks are for zoning purposes, but the expansion has to do with affordability. So they're two separate issues there.
No, the affordable units are established as the affordable units.
Right.
And a market rate, if people wanna spend money and add value to the property, there should be flexibility to do it.
As of now, how far are the houses on average from the lot lines? So we know?
From the lot side.
Sides, it's about 5 feet.
Yeah, I mean, part of it gets. Part of
I know it
gets
changes on the- I know.
confusing because we have garages that are closed.
Right.
So there's areas that, that they're very close.
And the sides are there. See, like, that's close.
Can I
Yeah.
just
You
ask
really
an
like-
overview, just kind of like governance question? When we create a community like this, are we creating new zoning that this is what's subject to, or are we creating a whole set of pre-existing non-conforming lots? That when you have changes, you have to go back to the ZBA? What's the standing for a comprehensive permit?
So they're
In my opinion, we're creating zoning for this property.
Right.
We've created new, fee simple lots, and we've established the framework in how the units can be constructed on there. And that should stay with the property going forward. I think we're not creating non-conforming lots, we're creating lots we're establishing the conformity.
correct.
Okay,
Based upon
does anybody,
bylaws.
does anyone else in the group have a sort of policy level difference of opinion with Mark on that?
No,
I don't think so.
Okay. Then the only reason you would impose a limit on footprint is because you have a separate objective of limiting the size of the houses.
Yes,
And
I like the percentage.
you do.
I like to limit the size of the house. I don't want them just, because it'll be like Lake Boone, where you have little cottages all over the place, and all of a sudden they come in, they put a little mansion on there, and they go right out to the property line, so you can give me a variance for that, which we do. And,
It's a little
we
different when
can,
they've got to define,
yeah, and then they
like-
go way up, and 35 feet is
So
the
let me
next
just ask,
problem.
do we have the authority to do that?
I think so.
this is a variance, right? So we have the ability to impose the regulations or conditions on the variance. at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's a big giant variance.
It is a big giant variance. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then does the board, as a group, wanna place a limit on the size of the houses?
I do.
I think there's a benefit to do it, yeah.
What's the benefit?
Hey, what is
Well, the
it?
benefit is your.
What's the benefit and what's the size
What's
of
the
the house that
advantage
you
of
want to
doing
live?
it?
You really don't care.
You already have a postage stamp size
Yeah.
lot here, right? So the pragmatic need of making it much bigger, even if you tore it down and put a new one in its place, you can't do it.
There's only
With the
so much-
regulations that are already existing, with the bylaws that we have for building.
Like they could cut all the way into that 35-foot
Well,
setback
they could, but
with a house,
uh,
keeping 5 yards away from the, 5 feet away from the back.
personally, I don't see that, that's a need, that's my opinion.
Can we, I'm sorry, I'm driving to closure here. Do we need to have a vote on it? Okay.
Yeah,
I think, like I said, I think people, we're not on a lake. People are gonna take everything. You're on the ocean, you take everything. People here, they're gonna, these are designed with modest backyards. They're modest to begin with. I don't think that people wanna have no backyards
Right.
in homes. I don't think we've got such a unique site that people are going to be ripping down these, I mean, I colossally screwed up. If in 3 years, people are ripping down the homes I built, you can build new ones.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna leave that money on the table, so trust me, I'm gonna get it, I can.
See all
So-
the McMansions that you could have built?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just saying, from a practical sense, the look and feel and scope of the project is gonna be as what we've seen. People should be, I want it to be a living property, I don't want it to be fixed, this isn't, a 6-unit condominium building, that this is what you have and this is what's done.
Cookie cutter.
I picture this being something that, will change a little bit and grow and morph as the people and the families do, just like any other neighborhood. And if you don't have a percentage modification in an existing, in your current zoning for a new subdivision, why would you put one here?
I also would argue that 10% is enough to be a pain in the neck and not so little to make a big difference.
So here's an extreme, or maybe not so extreme condition. Ernie's my we live in this subdivision, Ernie's my next door neighbor, he's gonna sell his house, I buy his house and I wanna demo it and turn that into one big lot. Can I do that? I could, right?
You would have offsets for structures that you
Yeah,
need to deal with.
So that
Could
may
you
be a
merge it
reason.
and make it a lot?
that
Could you
may
buy
be a
your neighbor,
reason.
you can buy your neighbor's not lot now?
Yeah, right, so that may be a
It's-
reason for the limiting the footprint. I could talk myself into that.
So that's a reason for limiting the footprint?
For me, it's because I think 95% of the people who are gonna buy these things are exactly what you're saying. They're okay with a small lot, if they do want a little bit of a backyard for whatever reason.
Right.
There's gonna be that one person who shows up, who goes, screw the backyard, I want a new room, I'm busting out my door, and I'm gonna go to 6 feet, or 5 feet, even though they've expanded the footprint, that community, that's gonna stand out, that community may not want it. I mean, you can always come here and ask, but there's no one's stopping them, we're just saying, we want you to come here and ask first.
Why do you wanna have people come in here to bother you with things?
Because we have slow days sometimes.
I don't know, it's 10 and everyone's gonna start fainting here shortly, so.
We were here at 7.
Oh, I know, we gotta go back
Oh,
again.
take your day- take
All right,
your day
all
out.
right, just to wrap this up, so, okay, just to be clear, 59 and 60 in the wetland permitting were agreed about saying has to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act,
Yeah.
but not the bylaw. Okay.
Right.
You good with that? Okay.
Yeah.
On revisiting the issue of the percentages, are we okay keeping it at 50? Other than, I think, Andy, who wants to get rid of it, does anyone else want to get rid of the percentages or not?
I'm a little inclined to get rid of it, but I'll go with the board if the board feels strongly.
You're inclined to get rid of it?
Yeah, I'm inclined to sort of simplify things so that there's just less jurisdiction.
Yeah, I'm, like I mentioned, the different variables, and I mentioned affordability, and as you pointed out, there's a deed restriction anyway. So even if they want to increase their house, it's still gonna have to be maintained as affordable. So what I'm hearing then is the objection that has nothing to do with that, it has to do with somehow some kind of community rights. And that just go against my philosophy. about zoning. My philosophy about zoning is you give up certain rights, individually for the benefit of the whole, but only certain ones. And I think this one's going a little too far to put restrictions, because I don't see, that this should be a community right here in terms of the size within those restrictions.
Has nothing to do with affordability though.
Right. has
The
nothing to do with
affordable units have
affordability.
restrictions on.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
that would have been my
But the
concern.
market rate is what I think
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
talking about.
and that would have been my concern, if for some reason it was gonna become a non-affordable house, and I'd say, okay, there's an issue there, but otherwise, I don't see the issue.
No,
Yeah,
my
and maybe-
concern. House
Sorry.
size is.
Oh, 1 second, Maria, hold on.
Yeah.
And the concern I'm feeling is that it ultimately might be overcrowding. If, and I agree, perhaps vast majority of people will not make large changes. But if it becomes a situation where significant numbers do radically increase their houses to maximize the footprint, it's going to feel very crowded in that space. And I don't think that's a healthy neighborhood.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is, you might say, why do we want these people coming here? I think, now that I think about it some more, it's also to give the neighbors the opportunity to say, I don't want that guy doing this, and here are the reasons why. They might lose, but I think there is a community purpose around giving people the ability to go, you need to understand how disruptive this might be. We might say, forget it, we're still gonna allow it. So, I'm sorry, Maria, go ahead.
And I may have heard wrong, but I think it was Andy was saying, the possibility of, say, a neighbor buying another neighbor's lot and then possibly,
Yep.
almost like turning two houses into one house. Wouldn't that then get into losing, one of the units that's, kind of affecting the integrity of what we're trying to do with kind of keeping the percentage of housing?
The
Units
market
at
value
point.
house.
What was that?
Yeah, they would only be the market value. In that scenario, they would each be market homes. We wouldn't be losing an affordable house.
They don't both count towards it though?
Not the single family,
No,
no,
not-
single family homes, no.
Yeah, only the
Okay.
apartments or the older.
All right.
Yeah, I couldn't see it ever happening. You'd never lose affordable units as a result of properties merging.
So the only other phenomenon that I'll comment on is, we have the same set of circumstances in Lake Bloom. Okay, it happens virtually every time somebody wants to make a change. And they're already on sub-postage stamp size lots. And we've gone through that rigor and we've granted in most cases the changes. So to say it's new, it's not new, it's just a different iteration in a different subdivision, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's manageable. And I think what my opinion again is, the way the lots have been designed and the way the setbacks have been set, you really aren't gonna have a lot of opportunity to turn these houses into something that they're not intended to be.
All right, well, based on my informal survey, I think the majority says to keep it the way it is, so I think unless there's further discussion, we're gonna move on. All right, general conditions. 61. We're good. 62.
So the only question I would have is about, this says a substantial change, that you have to have some way to determine it a substantial change. How do we make that assessment without having a hearing, or some way to actually process the request?
That's how they come to us. They ask for a change and we decide it's
Substantial.
Which page are we on now?
I'm sorry, so
sorry.
page 27, item 62.
760 CMR 560511 determines what is a substantial change.
Yeah, that's part of
We've
kind
done
of
that before
comprehensive
here.
permit law, so to speak, of what, and they have examples of what constitutes a substantial change.
Okay,
Well, we've done that
We did that
similarly
with,
with special permits where someone wants a major change versus a minor. And
right,
if we
we
determine
have,
it's minor, we can just deal with it. If it's major, then we have to actually have a new hearing. So it's almost like you have preliminary hearing, that's a bad word for it, but
If we're making changes, yeah, I mean, it could be either the building inspector
that
could
with
say, hey,
sanitation.
I think this is a bigger change, or we could come in and request. My experience, substantial changes, you know what they are. And it's your determination to make it, and you can decide, you know, what, even if it's, you know, if it's recommended that this may be a substantial change, you don't have to.
Agreed.
You don't have to recognize what it is, so if the board feels it's a substantial change, generally, that's, you have it here.
Thank you.
But there are guidelines for reference that you can look at, but it's not etched in stone, so.
all right, the changes on 61, 62, or for that matter, 63. All right, 64. Why was that paragraph deleted?
The recommendation of council,
About the mediation?
yes.
Okay. And 65.
And that's what we just talked about.
All right, there's a couple comments here about the radio report.
It is not needed. We talked to the fire department about it at our last staff meeting, so that can get scratched.
Performance guarantee.
That can get scratched for previous discussions we've had.
And then, Andy, I think you've got a few other things here. The minimum cash transfer to the umbrella trust.
We talked about that earlier.
You good? And then there's a thing about a requirement for a bus stop.
Mark said he didn't want to put in a bus stop because they're not.
I just want bus stops.
Nobody uses it. Well, where are you gonna fit, where are you gonna put it?
We don't have any bus to go there.
Well, I was gonna say, what's the, I'm sorry, whose suggestion was that?
I have no idea, it wasn't mine.
I might have mentioned it, yeah, I mean, basically the school bus, you know, high school kids down at the end of the street.
I can say
We're gonna go around the street now, so there's no.
Well, I don't know if the high school buses will do that, but it's not a big deal, it's just a suggestion.
I think the high schools do actually still go house to house.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, not in our neighborhood, they
Oh,
go
so
down
they
the
don't-
street, and
okay.
everyone meets down at the end of
You
the
just
street.
don't live in the right neighborhood.
But it's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, again, it was just a thought.
No, that's
Not
totally.
not a
Yeah,
burning
and
issue.
I mean, honestly, because I've had the requirements in other places, and we've never built it, because at the end of the day, nobody uses them. Kids don't, they're not hanging out independently anywhere.
Yeah.
If at some point.
And there really isn't a location to put it. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
again, if the housing, if the trust wants to do it, they can do it themselves, so.
I'm sure there's a prospective Eagle Scout that would love to build a bus stop.
And you've got a community center, they can always go to that.
That's right. Anything else on page 28 under the vote of adoption? Assume not.
Is everyone's name spelled correctly on page 29?
Honestly, it's all we care about. It is. Except, are we supposed to say the Stow Board of Appeals? Shouldn't it say the zoning board of appeals?
The official.
I'm sorry, it's on mine. You're right. All right, the appendix. Ernie, you have a bunch of comments here.
I just, some of them, I think we had to just say why, just say we just grant it, we need to say why we're granting it.
Why?
It's just.
I'm not
For someone-
objecting, I'm just,
For someone questioning, well, why did they grant that? I mean, just a few words saying that,
Yeah.
especially the Water Resource Protection District.
Other comprehensive permits that we've granted have had just a table saying granted or not.
Okay.
So it's not,
I
If
don't
it
think, I
was
don't think you
to-
need to editorialize personally. It's,
Okay.
I think it adds more confusion than anything else, that somebody's gonna say, well, I don't agree with that, so it, but at that point, it doesn't matter.
My other concern is that if you say why, especially in the sort of summary way you have it, which is totally fine, someone's gonna say, oh, well, that's the reason, that it's not for these other reasons.
Right.
Like, now suddenly you're like, all right, now we gotta explain everything. I'd rather just say, based on the things that we've talked about and on the record, granted, I think it's just, I understand why you're saying it, I'm afraid it opens the door. Unless anyone has any comments or questions, I was gonna jump to number 7, in the appendix A. And the highlighted one, the applicant requests relief to allow permanent signs that are larger than 3 square feet.
That is new as of the last hearing, so I just highlighted it to call our attention to it because nothing else has changed.
What's the difference between these signs and the other signs? I'm sorry.
We had a temporary sign before, like a construction, this is who it is, thank you, everybody, lender. The permanent sign is the stone sign that would be there long term.
Okay,
That's bigger than 3 square feet, that's why I wanted to show you exactly what we were looking for.
Gotcha.
We had dimensions, so there was no confusion of what we'd like to do to make it a spellbinding entrance.
Okay.
We specify it to be the entrance sign versus just a generic allowance for larger than three square feet.
We would then need to specify the wayfinding signs as well.
I thought we made reference, didn't you make reference to them?
And those are conditioned already.
For the
So-
wayfinding signs already.
Right, so the way I'm interpreting 7 is it's granting that waiver, but the conditions instead being listed directly under it, which would get confusing to go from condition to back and forth through the document. The conditions related to the signs are found in the content of the permit itself, not the appendix. Because we don't want to have conditions here that are the same as there.
But the request, I'm sorry, hey, if I'm talking for you. If you're saying that the permanent sign that's larger than 3 square feet,
Well, if I'm understanding correctly, the sign you're talking about is the entry sign for the property. That's the one you want.
There are 2 signs here that we're referencing as a temporary and a permanent,
Right,
both at the entry area.
but you want the permanent sign, the entry, when you're talking about permanent sign, you're talking about the permanent entry sign.
Correct.
And I'm just saying, if right now, this, unless I'm reading this wrong, that sentence to me just reads that any sign can be more than three square feet, based on that sentence alone.
Just
Any
clarify that,
permanent signs,
just
which is-
make it a
Yeah.
declarative statement that says. the
I don't actually
permanent-
understand why we even, I'm sorry, I don't even understand why we even need it.
Well, you need to waive the zoning to make it happen, because the zoning laws now dictate the size of the sign.
But
Permanent.
I'm sorry,
The permanent
I'm sorry,
signage.
maybe it's just me, it's like, earlier in the decision, we say that signs can be up to 8 square feet.
Temporary signs,
I thought, really?
yeah,
Third-
they're temporary.
No,
Oh,
the 8 square feet were the wayfinding signs.
oh, sorry,
For example, it was saying like clubhouse and had an arrow
Yeah,
pointing this
sorry.
way.
So what's the difference between a wayfinding sign and a permanent sign?
Wayfinding signs are permanent.
I think,
This
I think,
is
that- I think we can clarify it, but the point that he's trying to make is that, you've approved a permanent entry sign, is the one that you're talking about it in general. He's saying that any permanent signs, Wayfair or the entrance sign, are being waived, and that earlier in the decision, we're allowing 32 feet for the temporary, and we're allowing, the permanent entry sign and Wayfair sign as they've been presented, and with the Wayfair as being no more than 8 square feet.
Can we just specify here that when we say in this waiver that we're referring to a permanent entrance sign, one permanent entrance sign, as opposed to permanent entrance signs plural?
Do you,
Why not just say later on, all wayfinding signs and permanent signs must not exceed 8 square feet in the area.
Because the entrance permanent sign is larger than 8 square feet.
Oh, how big is it gonna be?
We had dimensions, that's the one that was submitted with the stone and the work. It's bigger than 8 square feet, if you include the whole thing, it's, it's 6 feet by 4 feet, so
Just include
it's.
not the front stonework.
Well, yeah, that's what, yeah, right, the stonework, I picture the whole thing, so.
These are just summaries of the requests. These aren't, the actual requests are referenced in the submitted documents.
Okay.
So this is just summarizing that they're requesting relief from the permanent sign bylaw. And I'm just saying that we granted it, and then there's the other conditions
Okay.
in there. Do you want a condition added back there that says no other signs are permitted? That no other permanent signs are permitted, just to clarify that only the wayfinding and the entrance sign are allowed.
Well, we got traffic signs.
They don't really apply to some
Other signs.
I don't know how, I know, but
There are directional signs in bylaw, but yeah, we can. Michael's point, so like we can add all those other things into what he was saying.
Sure, that's fine. I mean,
the sign bylaws are mainly for people creating their own signs, what they can and can't do, businesses and everything, and for safety signs and all that, they don't really apply. I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
so wait, do we
to me,
have
the key sign is the entrance sign and the wayfarer that are non-traditional signs.
Right.
And so that's why.
Do we actually have a cap on permanent signs that aren't wayfinding signs in here?
No.
Okay. Well, shouldn't we?
Well, we figured, if we decide to add more trails, then they may say, oh, you need to add another sign that says this trail is here.
I'm not saying limiting permanent signs, I'm saying just limiting the size of them.
We did, at the 8 square feet.
No, those are wayfinding signs.
That's the only signs we're talking about.
And
Oh, well, I thought an entrance sign would not be a wayfinding sign.
No, well, we talked about the entrance sign and the wayfarers, but the only other types of signs would be your traditional street signs that are, a stop sign, a speed limit.
Community center.
Community center would be wayfinding.
Wayfair.
Yeah.
The way I would interpret any application for a sign that would come in after this was developed would be just, is it aligned with the sign bylaw?
Yeah.
So if it's not mentioned in here, I would just review it against the applicable zoning. If that helps.
Can we just specify in that sentence what the permanent signs are? They're just the wayfarer sign and the entrance sign, that's it?
And the street signage, like the directional signage.
Actually, I'm fine. No, there's a sentence in here, all other permanent signs defined by the bylaw must comply with the bylaw, that's fine, okay. Sorry, I think I got lost.
It's 10:30.
Okay, I mean, now rereading this, I'm fine with that last highlighted sentence, all it's saying is that it's saying, just acknowledging what the request is. I mean, it's innocuous. All right, let's move on. 8, 9, and 10, any,
Should we go back to 6?
no? Okay, do I have snow storage?
Did we talk about that? Did I just?
No, we do not.
At the last meeting, Mark agreed to move the snow storage out of the wetland resource protection district.
Yeah, there was one area
Yeah.
that we had identified.
But is it a condition in the decision?
We had talked about that.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's not in this decision, but I can add a condition that says that the snow storage shall be removed or must be removed from
The
the
Resource, but that's fine.
Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah, he's already agreed to do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just.
Yeah, but
memorialize it.
to memorialize it, I think that makes good sense.
While Michael's doing that, anything from the board for 8, 9, and 10? General bylaws, Article 9, wetlands protection area. Any issues with that? Or the subdivision rules and regs?
He's complying with a lot of the subdivision rules and regulations. And there's a provision there like has to do for A and Rs and all that, because you gotta get an A and R for this whole setup.
We have the whole subdivision plan is in there, all the
I
lots
know.
are created, all
I know.
that stuff is done. But waiving the bylaw doesn't mean that we're never gonna do anything. I think it's saying we've established the framework
Okay.
here of what we're doing. I don't think if there's something particular that you wanna see happen, I think add that as compared to, it's really more a process that we're trying to streamline, that this board is, you're approving these lots as they are.
Yeah.
We don't need to go for a separate approval process,
Okay.
and release process and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's the intention.
Like the road construction, you're meeting the requirements for the road construction, so that's why I say, well,
Right, everything's, the quality of everything is the same, we're just
okay,
shrinking it up.
okay.
Are there any other comments, questions, proposed edits, or anything else that anyone would like to talk about?
There were two comments.
That was a rhetorical question.
There are two comments that should be added from peer review, and you've agreed to them. One to do with when the basins and everything, to establish what the real groundwater level is and everything. I have to go back and find exactly what they say.
There were two comments
There were two comments that should be added.
that were in the peer review. One had to do with the infiltration basins on the homes that, you know, they're not saying test everything, they're saying ensure that it's consistent soils and.
Right.
So that's fine.
Okay, and what's the second one?
Illicit discharge statement, missing someplace.
Yeah, that's regular stuff too.
Soil testing is to be performed in each area during construction and prior to installation for each stormwater management system, so that the design assumption relative to the groundwater depths and soil classifications can be verified. That was one of them. And
Storage area is one of them, that was done. 40 foot, that was done, signage was done.
seems like there was another one, but I can't find.
And the illicit discharge station, maybe.
That must be it. If I can find the other one, when I get it. Tomorrow I'll look for it and send it into the instance.
Can you try to find it?
The other one, I think what you were referring to has to do in the as-built. It's in
Okay, yeah.
Section 48.
Okay.
Including a condition of the as-built for the project, which includes a comparison of design versus as-built stormwater basin.
Yeah.
And volumes.
That's it.
What is that number?
It's
40?
item 40, it's item
48.
48.
Any other questions? Are you good with those?
So the one about the dry well infiltration, do you have the number for that? Just like in the peer review letter,
Oh,
just so I can
Yeah, of course.
easier.
40.
40, okay,
So 40.
yes.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, proposed edits, concerns?
One very small thing,
Yes.
the public hearing dates at the first page, I just need to update because there's been previous hearings,
That sounds right.
but that was it.
Awesome, thanks. I'll give town staff any additional comments, questions, concerns, the applicant. Members of the public.
No one sounds good.
There you go. All right. All right, in that case, I would entertain I think I entertain a few motions. Oh, yes,
Just one, it's just a reminder, that you closed the hearing, we were going to recognize that I was gonna send a letter about the inclusion of all the ways.
yes, yeah,
Just a reminder.
yeah, I think we've already recognized that, previously, so, but it is noted again. So,
So before a motion, I just wanna talk scheduling about the rest of this process.
Okay.
Generally speaking. My intent was that today would close. And then October 7th, at the board's next scheduled meeting, I would present the full draft of all of these edits. And then we would do the votes on the 7th for the decisions. For each of the 3 components, and then 1 decision for approval of the decision. For that, we need 3 out of 5 to vote in favor. I don't think that would be an issue. And then I would also need to collect signatures so that I can record it with the town clerk. So it would be preferable if everyone could be in person on October 7th.
or just 3 people.
Or at least 3. But it would look better if we have all 5. Does that work for everyone?
Hang on,
Is-
looking.
I don't know if I can be here, it depends on what time would you be doing it?
We
7:30.
do not have any.
You got anything else that day?
I have
So
another.
Michael, is that just for signatures? Is that what you're after?
it would be,
Final, yeah.
yes, signatures and those final votes.
Okay, so absolute worst case, I give you a signature page with my signature on it and I'm remote, but you've already got my signature in hand.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
You can't
yeah.
keep it in escrow, like almost in escrow? Can't hold it?
Maybe she could sign it before the meeting
No,
and.
she
That's
signs
what
it
I
before
meant.
the meeting.
So,
Yeah,
she
just
signs
sign it before the meeting.
Right, but it doesn't actually, you know,
I can also,
Probably be there, but just in case I can't, that would be my game plan.
She can sign it beforehand. We're gonna just
Yeah.
need 3 votes and the 3
she
votes over
signs
here
it
to sign
beforehand,
it.
it's
So
held in
that's,
abeyance pending the vote.
Yeah,
After
I-
we keep better.
I can have you sign it the next day too. It's,
Yeah,
we
that
have
would
10
be-
days to file it.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be ideal if you could either stop in.
Yeah.
On the 8th, just to sign.
So the
No worries.
physical is just for the signature,
Yes.
so she can be remote for the
You
vote.
can, yes, it can be remote for the
Just to be
vote,
clear.
but
What else is on the agenda?
are you available the 7th?
Yep.
Okay.
so. Let's see, on the 7th, there are 2 scheduled public hearings. One will need to be continued. And we'll talk about that after.
What's the one that doesn't?
The one that doesn't need to be continued is at 7:45,
Which one's that?
56 Harvard Road,
Dance studio,
the dance studio.
okay. The
I'm
one that's
sure
gonna be
about that because, one of the applicants is due on that date for, I mean, she's
That's right.
pregnant, that's her due date.
They don't need to be here.
Okay.
That's
So it is.
what,
That's fine. Okay, and
What time is your meeting, Mark?
I think it's at 6, what's the big air, I think it's 6:50.
that's at 7:45. The other one is going to be continued. It's scheduled at what time?
7:15.
6:15 at air.
I mean, I'm frankly inclined to put this on for like 7:20. We're gonna have to continue that other one, and then if we need you here,
From a practical sense, yeah, I mean,
if we need you here, we
close
can.
the hearing, so theoretically, I mean, I will.
Yeah, that's right. Theoretically, your role is not necessary.
Right.
What we could do is we could just schedule it for 7:20. If for some reason we do need you here, we can wait.
We
up.
actually don't need to schedule it,
Oh,
because if it closes.
good point.
And he's gonna send you the decision beforehand, so if you have any
Yeah,
comments,
If I have any comments, then I can
Yeah.
take a
Send
look
them
at
to
it.
us.
So I think it'll be fine, and I just don't know how long the other
It's
meeting's
fine,
gonna be.
Okay.
But it should be perfunctory for everybody at that point, I would think, right? Right.
Find out. So, all right. Otherwise,
So
you
what
good?
time
It may or it shall be perfunctory.
David, what time are we picking up? That was good. What time are we picking up this matter on the 7th?
Let's say ballpark 7:20-ish.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Michael?
I think that's it for me. I don't
Okay,
think there's anything else that anyone else has comments on.
all right, in that case, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to close the hearing on golf course.
We have a motion, sort of.
Second.
I have a second.
Everybody figures out after that,
We have a second?
That was me.
Second, all right. We have a motion, we have a second to close the hearing on the application for comprehensive permit at 0 Randall Road, Stow Acres North Golf Course. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5 in favor, the hearing is now closed. We can no longer take information from the applicant or members of the public.
Accept the letter I'm sending it.
What'd you say?
Accept the letter I'm sending it.
Yes.
We've already noted that.
We already noted it. In the minutes.
People have always said that to me, it's gotta be in the motion, that's the only reason I'm being annoying, real sorry.
Sure. We just added it.
And that's what Ernie said.
That's what Ernie said. Included that.
Yeah, I heard him say
I
it.
heard him.
Good, sorry.
So there's just one other item we need to go over. That's not related to this, so.
He doesn't need to sign anything because we closed the hearing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's all done.
All right, Mark, thank you. We may or may not see you on the 7th.
Yes, well, I hope you do, if not, I mean, I'll bring the champagne then. If you can wait, I might be late, but. But what I'll do, I'll talk with Michael beforehand, I mean, and you've got, Mike, if I can get something, so you can text me and I can text you
Yeah,
back
save
if
your
it's an
trip.
issue. And that way we can deal with it, so.
That's okay.
And thank you very much, I'm really sorry about earlier, I'm
Oh, God, don't
really embarrassed, so. But thank you for everything, it's obviously been a longish process, but it's been productive and really professional and respectful, and I really.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Grateful to you, Mark.
All right, Michael, take it away.
We'll see you.
Right,
So there has been an issue that has been raised for the ZBA, the planning board, and the conservation commission. There was an issue with the noticing of the 3 public hearings related to Masters Academy. The problem has since been addressed, and the conservation commission and the planning board have, I believe, taken action. So it's, now that we're here, we need to take a little action. So it is recommended that we do not open the public hearing for 68 Great Road on October 7th.
Okay.
This is a variance application, so immediate, or not immediate, but faster decision rendering times are in effect for the board. And I've talked with,
And the glitch doesn't help.
the glitch does not help the board, but it doesn't, we still have the same deadline because it's based on the filing, not the opening of the hearing.
Okay, so the file was one.
The filing was,
Better yet, when's the deadline?
the deadline's not until December 12th.
Oh.
So we had 100 days to do action. I have been in touch with the counsel for the applicant, and there were some suggested dates that we could have the hearing for
We can't,
for the variance.
we can't wait till what would be our normal November hearing.
Because of the town's error, we are trying to be as generous as we can with the applicant.
Fair enough. Okay, what are the dates?
And there, so there is October 22nd, 24th, 28th, and 29th.
22nd is Sunday, a Sunday, isn't it?
No, hold on.
It's a Tuesday.
October.
Can we do the 28th? I can do the 28th. I'm gonna put a vote in for that.
That's a Monday?
With 22, 28, And what was the
Lenny,
third?
you're,
I have to
24?
recuse myself
Right, you're
anyway.
recused anyway,
Yeah,
so,
I'd
yeah.
like to be here, but in the
Well,
audience.
yeah. I'm just saying if you have a conflict, it's less important just because you're
Yeah,
recused, so, okay.
So it was 22, 24, and 28, those are the options,
And the 29th.
and 29?
I just figured 28th is a Monday, it's a normal day.
I can make any of those work, so.
Yeah, I can't make the 22nd, but the other ones work fine.
Okay.
28
Maria,
works.
can you make the 28th?
28th, yeah.
Okay, all right, and just as an FYI, I think I mentioned this, I can't remember if everyone was here, but I think I'm gonna start as a practice asking for one full-time member to step off for hearings so that our associate members can be more participating, so I'm gonna have, as Lenny is obviously having to recuse himself, Maria will be a voting member for this hearing, so we can figure out which of the full-time, oh yeah, Ernie's gonna
I won't be quiet, but
yeah. He will withdraw from consideration, so, all right, so let's do the 28th.
Okay.
It'll be the only item, I assume, on the agenda.
Yes, it'll be a special hearing.
7 PM?
And now.
Yes, 7 PM.
Okay, great.
When there.
And David, I'm on that one.
Sorry, what'd you say, Ruth?
Am I on that one?
Yes, you will be, actually,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
I would suggest that people read Mass General Law 40A, Section 3, as well as the variance section of that, just to refresh your memory.
Yes, I'm preparing a staff memo that I'll be sending out
Okay.
next week that talks about the variance process.
thank you,
Because
Michael.
Section 3 limits what we can do with educational operations, but that's nonprofit, this is for profit. But with the variance,
Yeah,
there might be problems with the.
But we have to be careful, especially also you're not,
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, those are things you should review and be able to discuss.
I look forward to the staff memo.
Yeah. Anything else on scheduling?
So can you share with the uninitiated part of the audience here that what the glitch was? I mean, what happened?
I think
The assessors just missed a parcel in the abutters list, so, we noticed. And now, yeah, it's our responsibility to correct it, so.
Okay, thank you.
In Miss Lenny's house.
Unfortunately, we missed all the villages.
Oh,
That's a big
that's right.
contingency.
That is a.
Yeah.
That's why I was doing some labels earlier.
It's a very long abutters list.
Yeah, okay.
So
Now I got
then
it.
we noticed that it was not as long as we.
All right, so we have October 7th, and then for 1, 2, 3 matters, and then this one on the 28th.
Yes, we have this one on the 28th, and then there is one for next week, November 4th, and that'll be for 60 Pine Point Road. And that is an application for a shed.
So, sorry, you said, remind me, November 4th.
It's not a
That's our
mansion.
regular Monday.
And that's a regular scheduled meeting.
That's a Lake Boone, it's not a mansion, it's just a shed.
All right, are there any other things that we need to discuss? I don't think so.
No.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Well, I need a topic as to what the motion
Can we
is.
adjourn the meeting?
Okay,
And it's been,
all right,
aye.
all right, Ruth, a second. All right, we have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Right.